Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome back to the Blasphemers Bible. And where are you going?
Oh, your scarf is crawling away.
Yes, this is Morticia. And we took her out to the local goth club last night. She was very good.
Oh, Morticia. She's looking for Gomez, obviously.
Yeah, that'll know.
Actually, her mate is another white snake, but his name is Coverdale,
Oh,
after obviously lead singer from Whitesnake.
awesome.
Anyway, do we have any opening comments on Ezra 6, is it?
Yes, we're still in Aramaic again.
We're still in Aramaic again.
Yes.
Incredible sentence.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have the talk about Aramaic all over again, aren't we?
Yeah.
When in Aramaic, do as the Armenians do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you were going with that.
Me neither.
Yeah. Oh, and I should note that I'm happy to announce that I finally finished the courses for my master's degree, which means that I don't have the master's yet. I need to finish my thesis, which will probably take until the end of the year, and then I'll be a proud masturbator. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You should have an
Yeah.
OnlyFans for that.
No, I have a throne for that.
Don't worry, they use that too.
No,
What are you baiting,
Oh.
bears?
no stochastic differential equations.
Definitely.
See, that's
Okay.
nowhere near as much fun as the other people on Throne.
No. Oh, and I should make the joke. Aaron, have you had your pills today?
My pills?
Yeah.
Well, you're here.
I'm having mine. It's Pilsner, Aaron. You love Pilsner, don't you, Aaron? You've been to Czechia, right?
Abby's
You
had his
know,
pills for the
we
day.
invented Pilsner.
Yeah, you might want to keep that to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right, so how about we hop into chapter 6?
I'm drinking an
Yes.
ale, but it's not a pale ale.
There we go.
I just woke up and barely know where I am. So,
As usual.
dude, last night it was very busy at work. Like every seat was taken. Like we were packed. And it might have something to do with Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Yeah. So let's yeah, that was fucking annoying. That was annoying how busy that was. So oh man, I'm exhausted. All right.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll read chapter 6. Why not?
Okay.
Help it wake you up.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Curious. And then,
Tomer,
completion.
Tomer, the only valid pale ale is ale that comes in pails.
He's got you there.
I mean,
Regular
Okay.
ale that comes in pails, I should say.
And keep the pails
what is
coming.
what is regular ale?
Really?
Non-pale ale?
Yeah.
Like what you get in the pub, like out of the...
Usually a
I don't
brown or
know.
something like that. It's most common.
Not
I mean,
bad.
I don't really drink beer, so I don't really know the difference between lager and
Oh, so you
regular ale.
mean-
But
Okay.
So an ale is something that's brewed a specific way with certain types of hops and grains. So
right.
All
regular ale
anyways,
is
I'm
ale
gonna hop into
Just-
Ezra
just-
6.
hey,
Yeah,
should be
I
that
think we
hops.
should probably do
wait,
that.
I think I'm
wait.
getting off the rails too much.
Yeah,
See,
wait,
someone's
is-
gotta steer this ship. All right.
Yeah, but wait.
right, Dad.
Isn't Aaron supposed to read this? Because
Yeah, Aaron
now
reads
Oh,
he's
that's
the
in
right.
chapter.
charge.
That's right. Yeah.
Whoops, I accidentally closed it.
Wow.
Off to a
Our
great start
illustrious
today.
leader, everyone.
We're
Aaron
professionals.
This
accidentally
is why the
deleted
captain
the
never
Bible.
trusts his first mate.
All right, so King Darius then issued an order, and they searched in the archives stored in the treasury at Babylon. A scroll was found in the citadel of Ecbatana in the province of Media, and this was written on it. Memorandum. In the first year of King Cyrus, the king issued a decree concerning the temple of God in Jerusalem. Let the temple be rebuilt as a place to present sacrifices, and let its foundations be laid. It is to be 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, with 3 courses of large stones and 1 of timbers. And you'll bring 2 of all the animals. No, I'm sorry, no. Wrong story. The costs the costs are to be paid by the royal treasury. Also, the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to Babylon, are to be returned to their places in the temple in Jerusalem. They are to be deposited in the house of God. Now then, both now and then,
I
Tattenai,
miss you.
governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Sether-Bozenai, and you other officials of that province, stay away from there. Do not interfere with the work of this temple of God. Let the governor of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I hereby decree that you are to do for these elders of the Jews in the construction of the... I'll read that again. I hereby decree that you are to do for these elders of the Jews in the construction of the house. Does that sentence doesn't make sense?
Not
Shouldn't
really.
it be
No.
reconstruction?
I think your
So that
translation is
decree-
trying hard to be like more literal, like to follow the order of the Hebrew as well. So
Okay.
it might be a bit more,
Contracts.
you know.
That was just awkward. Okay, their expenses are to be fully paid out of the royal treasury from the revenues of Trans-Euphrates, so that the work will not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, male lambs for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, and wheat, salt, wine, and olive oil as requested by the priests in Jerusalem, must be given them daily without fail, so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven and pray for the well-being of the king and his sons. Furthermore, I decree that if anyone defies this edict, a beam is to be pulled from their house and they are to be impaled on it.
Ugh.
And for this crime, their house is to be made a pile of rubble. May God, who has caused his name to dwell there, overthrow any king or people who lifts his hand to change this decree or to destroy this temple in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have decreed it. Let it be carried out with diligence.
Hmm.
Such love.
Yes. Then, because of the decree of King Darius had sent, Tattenai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Sether-Bozenai and their associates carried it out with diligence. So the elders of the Jews continued to build and prosper under the preaching of Haggai, the prophet of Zechariah, a descendant of Iddo. They finished building the temple according to the command of God of Israel and of the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes.
You know what? Keep it that way.
Okay. Artaxerxes, king of Persia. The temple was completed on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. Then the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the exiles celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. For the dedication of this house of God, they offered 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 male lambs, and as a sin offering for all of Israel, 12 male goats, one for each of the tribes of Israel.
You gotta love
the-
Texas barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
And they installed the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their groups for the service of God at Jerusalem, according to what is written in the book of Moses. On the 14th day of the first month, the
Oh, now
exiles
we resume.
celebrate.
Just,
What?
Just a second. Now we resume Hebrew. Resume with Hebrew.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the 14th day of the first month, the exiles celebrated the Passover. The priests and Levites had purified themselves and were all ceremonially clean. The Levites slaughtered the Passover lamb for all the exiles and for their relatives, the priests, and for themselves. So the Israelites who had returned from exile ate it, together with all who had separated themselves from the unclean practices of their Gentile neighbors in order to seek the Lord, the God of Israel. For 7 days they celebrated with joy the festival of the unleavened bread, because the Lord had filled them with joy by changing the attitude of the king of Assyria, so that he assisted them in the work of the house of God, the God of Israel. Not the God of the whole world, because most of the world didn't know about him.
Yep.
I mean, you do have God of heaven, so
Nobody lives there.
and also later, previously we read God of earth and heaven. I think that's what Cyrus said. Elohei haaretz v'hashamayim.
Which one is it?
Now, I get that since part of this is in Hebrew and part of this is in Aramaic, that it's obviously written by different people. But I mean, there's also a different writing style.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you can even see it
there
in
is
English
also-
translations.
There's also a couple of you could say historical mistakes, which isn't unheard of in the Bible, obviously, but they're quite interesting. I mean, right at the end, of course, we get the king of Assyria, which is a bit weird because we're talking about the king of Persia.
Yeah,
he was also the king. He's
what
also
the
the
fuck
king
does
of.
Assyria have to do with any of this?
This is why I was so confused by King Darius. It's like, wait, that's Persia. Why are we talking about this right now? In this?
Yeah, and it's not I mean
there is a reason why it is king of Assyria, but it is basically modern commentators generally take it as a general name for the Mesopotamian emperor. You have ancient Near Eastern texts.
They did see themselves as
like Caesar in a way.
Kinda.
Or Pharaoh.
Kind of. Okay.
I mean, even Nebuchadnezzar II and Cyrus have presented themselves as successors of Ashurbanipal, and yeah. So
Playing off the myth.
the
Classic.
Persian king succeeded the Babylonians legitimately, and the Babylonians have succeeded the Assyrians. Is one way of putting it. The other thing, of course, is that we have at the beginning King Cyrus. They found this memorandum. King Cyrus, blah blah blah. Then it says I Darius, and then it says they kept building during the reigns of Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, and then it says they finished completing it in the third year of Darius. So it's a bit confusing. That's probably why the traditional commentators think that they're all the same person.
That's more than a bit
Cyrus, Darius,
confusing.
and Artaxerxes is referring to the same king.
That's not possible. It's literally
Well, I
not
mean,
even close.
Well,
if you read this
what's in a
chapter,
name,
you could
right?
you could read it that way because literally you have a letter saying, how does it start?
Well,
in
the
first
thing is,
year
I thought
of
that it was
Cyrus.
that they had found an old decree of Cyrus, and then Darius was saying, on account of this decree, we're going to go build the temple and stop fucking it up, or I'll stab you through the ass with your house post. Which, incidentally, appalling as it is, impalement was actually not an uncommon punishment in that form of the world.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's incredibly gross, and honestly, at some point, you almost think crucifixion was a step up. But you know, it was a thing.
Yeah,
I know that there was. Sorry, Tomer. But...
Okay, I kind of heard it as like one long letter, but you're right. It is. Sorry, it is a letter from Cyrus, and then Darius gets is the one who made the investigation, and then he tells them, let them continue, don't disturb them, blah blah blah, and then it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Got a comment to read. Stay10-616, who offers what is it? 25 Romanian lei. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Little bit late, but a shout out to the world being free of James Dobson. He did a lot of
Oh, yes. I forgot to drink to that last time. Oh my God.
I'm gonna give it some time.
Fuck that man. Fuck that man and all the trauma that he caused to my entire generation and to all of us who grew up in religious households. The way he convinced everyone that like child abuse was not just permissible, but necessary. I know good parents who were taught that if they didn't break their kids' will, they were going to be failing them as parents and they would inevitably be sent to hell.
Wow. To finish the comment, Aaron, do you have any not so kind words about him? Well, here's the
I think I
problem.
just did.
Yeah. Here's the problem with things like this. I can't. In the movies, especially like in the 80s, all the medieval movies that came out in the 80s, whenever you kill the bad guy for whatever reason, his castle falls down. Every one of these, you just kill the bad guy and then the whole place collapses for no structural reason. But in reality, these creeps do all this incredible damage, and then when they die, the damage is still there. And they have their idiot minions have not fled. Look at Lord of the Rings. Same thing. Bad guy dies, everything collapses. There's a huge hole in the ground. All the other orcs run away. All that shit. It's over and done. It's nice. It's like Scar is dead, and suddenly there's no more hyenas, and the sun shines again. But that shit doesn't happen in real life. Creeps like this die, and they leave all the damage, and there's all this work to do, and then there's all these deceived minions who are still doing his bidding.
Another good example how there's no such thing as God, because God's justice does not physically exist. Otherwise, the justice of this would have been clear, and it would have just vanished, as you said.
Oh, look at the cat. Okay, the cat is an
To be
improvement, but I
fair-
still have several things to say. James Dobson was one of the reasons I still hope there's a hell, because he deserves to be in it. I don't care. I'll take a Hell's Bells kind of hell. He'll be on the 9th level anyway. I would like to take him, Pat Robertson, and Jerry Falwell and make some kind of a horrific human centipede circle, because that is exactly what we deserve. And wherever you are, wherever you see anything from Focus on the Family, oppose it blindly and fanatically. Throw away the magazines, undermine their advertising. Everything about them is evil. This was his child, and everything it does is cruel under the guise of morality in ways we do not have time for me to describe if I used this entire program.
Next comment is from Duke of Many Things. He says, Aaron, is this the first mention of Jews? I don't think so, but
Kinda.
Depends on the order that you read the
depends
Bible
on the
in.
order. Yeah.
Fair point.
Yes.
okay. And then Duke of Many Things again says, Aaron, did I lose count, or did we reach the third temple here?
What?
No, this is the
No.
second temple.
The second?
There was the
Wasn't something
tabernacle.
supposed to happen with the third one?
No, there
Well,
was
the third one is the
tabernacle.
Greek one, or the Herod one.
Generally, the
Sort
third
of.
temple is what we call the messianic temple that hasn't been built yet, or it's been built and it's in heaven and it will come down on a
Right.
cloud.
Like a giant
Crush.
floating
No.
box. Just
With
a-
cloud stones, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
We had the
right. Isn't it
tabernacle, and
it's sort
then
of
we
like
had
a
the first temple.
golden
And every-
cube? Like a golden cube of heavenly light that's going to come down like a Borg cube and just assimilate the earth.
For some reason,
We
they
know
always
our
depict
God.
it as for some reason they always depict
We
it
will
as
be assimilated.
the Herod's temple, which is quite funny, but whatever. And and they tell and you as a child you'll be told something like every good deed you do is like another brick in the building of this heavenly temple.
Yeah,
And if you
they
make this
love
happen, then
they love metaphors like that. Like if you read like the Shepherd of Hermas, the temple is being like if you convert basically, then you become like a brick in the temple, or like a stone in the temple or something. Not literal, right? It's but the thing is, just as soon as it's done, they're not gonna need any more stones, so you better convert fast. Like that's kind of the point of these things.
I mean, there's
They
another one
love
which
that
is
metaphor.
like when you say a blessing or a prayer, you create an angel, like from every letter or something like that. And if you say it without the right, like, what's it called? Kavana.
Are you sure that's not whenever a bell rings?
No, that's
With
when they
any-
get their wings.
Yeah, but if you don't say it with the right intentions, then they might be born like with broken wings and stuff like that.
You know, it is funny because I forget which
You've given me
Gnostic work it
ideas.
is, but there was a Gnostic work that said that a new angel is created whenever God speaks any word. Yeah. So
Okay.
kind of
So the Jewish version is like any child says a word in Hebrew, sort of thing.
So you're
prayer.
saying
Yeah.
so you're saying that if God has spoken any word that we have angels, that's why there aren't any angels.
What
I get
exactly
it
do I need to
now.
do to call more demons into existence? I would like an
Right?
emotional support demon and maybe a himbo.
Oh, I just watched the movie
I
Legend.
don't know if
of
you
Anne
can
Hathaway for
create
that
demons, but
urge.
you can summon them with like you put like ashes around your bed made from like the placenta of the seventh cat born to the seventh
Uh,
cat or something, and then in the morning you'll see like chicken feet prints in the ashes, and you know that a demon had visited you or something like that. It's lovely. There is a one that if you put the ashes in your eyes, you can see them, but like they say, don't do that.
Can't they just stick around and have a sandwich? Why do they need to leave
Right.
like footprints on my floor?
Yeah, like Santa Claus and cookies. I mean, we all know, right?
The next comment, again from Duke of Many Things, says, Aaron, I'm trying to line things up. Which Persian king was it who went up against the 300 Spartans in Thermopylae?
Xerxes. Darius
one?
was his father. That's
Oh.
right.
Xerxes, that's the one that's like 9 foot tall, kind of steel
That would
colored.
be Xerxes'
Yeah,
first,
that's the
I
one.
think.
Yeah, you got it.
So that's Xerxes the one, the first. Xerxes the one. Xerxes the
Mhm.
first, who was the one who is identified a lot of times with the king in in the
Mhm.
Book of Esther, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever, because
It makes
he's
no
also
sense,
depicted.
but it's historical
But
fiction.
he's also depicted as the father of Darius, which would, if we're talking about Darius II, then maybe he's like, he could be Artaxerxes the third or second.
What does
Yeah.
your shirt say, Lawrence?
What?
What does your shirt say?
It says I'm your mommy.
And mine is a gift from a viewer religion. Together we can find the cure,
And
Very
my
good.
Sims, and
which
my
is
says,
obviously found in my breasts.
and my
Together.
says palms because I'm poor.
Oh.
I want an Autechre shirt. Okay, so should I start a commentary, or do you
Please.
have anything else to say? Okay, so I'll start with verse 2 about Ekbatana, in Aramaic, Akhmata. Located at modern Hamadan in northwestern Iran, it was the capital city of the Median Empire, until Cyrus captured it in 550 or 549 BCE. According to Fried, since it was located at the foot of Mount Orontes, it provided a cool summer retreat for the Persian kings. Eskenazi notes that it remained a strategic center for controlling Central Asia. Herodotus, in Histories 198, mentions that it was surrounded by 7 concentric walls. It was surrounded by 7 concentric walls, each one higher than the next. Within the innermost circle stood the royal palace and the treasuries. Ekbatana is also mentioned in Tobit and Judith, with Judith emphasizing its great walls in 1-2, and in Tobit, Tobias meets his bride in Ekbatana and eventually settles there in Tobit 5:1-14.
Yeah, I mean, is Akhmata the official, like the normal Aramaic name for that place, or is this a later identification where like this seems to be referring to?
No, I think
Ekbatana.
that's the I think that's the original, if I remember correctly. Let me just check. Because it apparently is in Aramaic.
Bivirta, which is translated as like the citadel or fortress or whatever, could also be translated as capital, and I don't think Ekbatana was ever the capital of the Persia.
No, it was but it was the royal chief city of the Median Empire, and basically they
Oh,
turned
okay.
it to. I mean, Ekbatana is Greek, right? That's where Ekbatana
yeah.
came from, right?
Right.
But probably let me just check.
Yeah, sounds similar enough to
I mean, Septuagint did not recognize the place, and it just translated it to in a city.
in a city.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few of those lying around. It was one of them. It was very city-like, had city stuff.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Becking, at least in Old Persian, it's Hangmatana, maybe?
Yeah, Hagmatana. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. On that same verse, memorandum. In Aramaic, dachrona. Becking notes that this is a loan word appearing only here in the Bible and indicates an official document from the Persian chancellery, meaning an object that needs to be remembered.
Yeah.
In the Elephantine letters, we find a memorandum, zicharon, circa 407 BCE, of a meeting with Yedaniah, a high priest of the temple of Yahweh, and between Bagavia, governor of Yehud, and Delaiah, governor of Samaria. Eskenazi writes that this letter exemplifies the genre to which verses 3 through 5 largely confirms. She notes that the authenticity of the memorandum ranks comparatively high in scholarly estimation, with most scholars tending to accept the reliability of verses 3 through 5. She notes Bedford's opinion, quote, "It is reasonable to argue that the temple rebuilding was sanctioned by the administration as the Aramaic version of the Cyrus decree in verses 2 through 5 and the Aramaic narrative of the temple building in Ezra 5 and 6 claim."
Yeah, the
And that-
dichrona in Aramaic is obviously a cognate with zichrona in Hebrew, a memory, a memoriam, whatever. Yeah, you're gonna get that a lot with Aramaic words. A lot of times the duh sound is the same. The same word pretty much in Hebrew would have a z sound. So there definitely are cognates, even though they sound slightly different. Yeah, and it comes up a lot, like gold in Hebrew is zahav, and in Aramaic is dahav or dahava.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I thought the Persians were rather famous for letting people kind of, the people that the Babylonians had collected, go back home and sort of restart their societies, but as subservient, a little more than like, because in the old days of Assyria, it was basically just you paid tribute, whereas this was like you were actually under the governance of Persia, but you still had your own laws for
Yes, it was a
Yeah,
sub
sort of.
government.
It's
Yeah, exactly. So when they were conquered an area, what they would do is send envoys and whatnot to discuss the terms of surrender before they actually had conflict, which is why the events of Sparta was such a big deal, as well as Athens, because the Greeks refused. And so they said you have an option to do these different types of things. Now, the myth of water and soil, I'm not sure if that's true or not. I think that was made up. But the concept was that the envoys were basically sent back, and then Xerxes said, all right, well, we're going to go over and smash your boats in and smash everything else in. And then that battle occurred with Thermopylae. Then, of course, there was another battle that occurred at the sea, where the Athenians absolutely crushed them entirely. But generally speaking, how it works is that the Persians will conquer an area and say, you're going to have your laws, you'll have your rulerships, we're not going to oust your king. You can be the king, you can still rule, but you just have to be subservient. If we ever need you for doing something, then you have to basically do what we tell you. And then you'll have peace. And it was actually a surprisingly progressive, it's weird to say that for the time period, because it was very tolerant of religions and other things too, and points of view that had not really been seen in other parts of the world.
I mean, usually polytheistic religions are way more malleable. They can they're way more fine with like other people having their own personal faiths. And it was noted, I forget if it was you, Jeff, or if it was Lilith, but like they did like let people go back to their homes, right? Because one of the main ideas of the Babylonians was like they can't rise up against us if they're all fucking scattered, like they can't organize. So the Persians did let them return, but it's important to remember that not everyone did. There were plenty that stayed where they were. They built up new communities in new places. One of the significant ones from this time period would have been Elephantine in Egypt. Yeah.
And it's important also to note that religion at this point, and not just for the Jews, but for everyone, was an absolutely integral part of governance, of life, of traditions. It wasn't this separate thing the way we think of it today. there was no separation of church and state. It was your identity was interwoven in every area with religion. And we still have leftovers of that today. You can talk to an Irish person who's like, I'm a Catholic and an atheist because culturally and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, this, like the concept of separation didn't even exist. It's an entire way of life, an entire interconnected identity, and having your own local laws. I mean, obviously, Persia's allowing them to set up local governments with limited but necessary power to control the local goings on. But yeah, it's kind of strange that like impalement would be part of a comparatively progressive move at the time. But yeah, that's how history goes.
So was
I mean,
beheading, if you can believe it. I still can't believe that myself, but they thought that was a very humane way of killing someone, for example.
You know who else thought
Yeah,
that
you die
beheading was
quickly
very.
if you're beheaded. It's good.
You know who?
It's brutal.
You know who else thought that beheading was a humane way to go?
French.
The French.
The French.
Oh yeah, they loved that.
They last used the guillotine when Star Wars came out.
1977. That's right. Very last
Yeah,
one ever
and
done.
it's fair to point out that from the perspective of the person dying, it is very quick. That's certainly more humane if we're coming from, a culture of impalement.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
which is
there are still countries.
distinctly not quick.
I
crazy
think the most humane way to kill somebody is with a 16-ton weight.
I was just gonna say get high as hell and just overdose, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that there are still countries that have the death penalty. It's like so weird to think about.
United States.
Yeah, we still got like some states still have it. Yeah,
We do in
I've
Washington. I
noticed-
still can't believe it, but we do.
My state
How-
executed twice as many people than the next most lethal state.
I believe that.
that's very
Texas will just
Texas.
kill you.
The thing
Texas
is,
something
well,
special.
I'm not as entirely opposed to the principle of that being an appropriate response to a very limited number of things. No government who upholds a death penalty is a government I would trust to handle a death penalty. Like they're
Right.
just not. They're
said.
just.
Yeah, there are
I
people
do
that
not
deserve
trust them
death.
to be
Though.
just. I don't.
There are people that deserve death, but I don't trust a political
Exactly.
system to.
Like we have
to
the
enforce that.
Innocence Project, for example, that they do their best to like exonerate people that are probably innocent of the crime. Sometimes even when the Innocence Project is like, hey, this person's probably innocent, like the legal process doesn't work fast enough to save them sometimes. However, I would say that I think I'm maybe in the same boat as Lilith, where it's like I see like if someone is so much of a problem to like society over multiple times, where they do something like absolutely heinous.
Mhm.
I am not in theory against the death penalty, but the fact that 4% of the people that we kill are actually innocent, that's a system that can't like be upheld.
Yeah.
By
And
the
I
way,
mean, that's just
I
the
want-
ones that are demonstrably innocent in a system of great inequality and racism and bigotry and ideological bigotry that's very deeply ingrained. Who knows how bad it is. And that's just, I just don't trust them with that. I mean,
I saw a comment here by Satan616 about the pro-life states want the most death penalties, and I find that to be unfortunately true. I find that very interesting.
yeah.
It's kind of ironic we think like pro-life until you're born, then we'll kill you as often as we can.
That's why they're never going to give up abortion. It gives them fantasy babies to always claim the moral high ground about.
It's like,
So
oh,
that no
little
matter
baby,
what
I'm gonna
atrocities they
kill
commit
you
to real
someday.
people and real children, they can always pretend that they're morally superior.
Yep,
It's self-righteousness on crack. That's what abortion is to them.
it really is. Anyway, so Joe Mayer, do you have any more
Last year
stuff?
of King Cyrus, yes.
Are you done? No, I do see one comment. Maybe Aaron wants to read it first.
Okay. All right, so Mickey Genome 8, I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's a meaning in there.
No.
Offers £5. Mickey Gnome? That's right, it's not Genome.
Maybe he has no
Gnome.
friends. Maybe he has no
Orange,
friends.
speak English, for fuck's sakes.
Maybe he has
speaks
no friends.
Pologeny.
He's been drinking. He's been drinking.
Yeah.
He's got no mates. He's Mickey no mates. Okay.
Okay, maybe that's
Aw.
it. Yeah. If I don't have ashes to sprinkle around my bed to summon demons or as a human sacrifice, could I just use dandruff instead to cover both bases?
I feel like that would do the opposite of summoning.
Yes,
I
yes. I
think
feel
we
like
have
that's a
to
good
buy you a-
repellent.
I think we have to buy you a Dyson. That's what we have to do here. Clean up your room, man.
And some Head and Shoulders.
The protection spell. Protecting against what? Everyone
Dandruff.
If you
else?
want to attract
I-
demons, if you
I
want to
did-
attract demons, be inviting.
It's true. It's true. And I noticed someone asked what to put in a summoning circle to summon me. Your best bets are very high quality coffee and chocolate, dark.
Hmm.
Definitely.
way-
well, yeah, definitely dark chocolate.
By the way, Tomer looks really pissed right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I haven't even gotten to the verse about the impalement, and you start talking
What-
about executions in modern times.
What are you saying, Tomer?
Relevant.
That you
No, it's not. No. That's not how it works. You have to cut me off when you have to rudely cut me off, and don't you dare do that. Okay, so we're on verse
You know, if
3.
we have to rudely cut off Tomer for him to say it.
You just did. You set the rules of this engagement, Tomer. Play according to your own rules.
Oh, poor.
Okay, so we're on verse 3.
Yalla.
Yalla. 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide. Two issues are present in this verse: the lack of length given for the temple and the exaggerated dimensions. If 1 cubit is roughly 45 centimeters or 18 inches, then 60 cubits is around 27 meters or 90 feet. In contrast, Solomon's temple measured 60 cubits in length, 20 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height, as we see in 1 Kings 6:2. Kimchi writes that the length of the temple was 60 cubits, if we assume a square building. Peshitta has the width at 20 cubits. Likewise, Fried notes that Williamson amends the dimensions here to follow 1 Kings 6:2, and she claims that this is most likely what the text's author had in mind. She notes that these also approximate the dimensions of the temple at Ain Dara in northern Syria, the closest parallel to Solomon's temple. The length was probably omitted due to homo eoteliuton.
And Francesca Stavrakopoulos in her book God and Anatomy covers the temple at Indara pretty in depth.
Oh, was that the one with the
The
not
big
the one
footprints?
with the footprints? Yeah.
I think that was that one. Yeah, I think it was the one with the footprints.
Oh, that's so cool. That was such a cool story.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you say
it's-
27
sorry.
meters?
27, yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing
So
to
what's-
think that boots changed our perspective of God.
So like for the Americans in the audience, like how many like giraffes? is
90
that?
feet.
Okay.
I just said that, Isaac.
No, I know what the I know. I was just saying that they like.
What's a
anything other-
giraffe? I'm not familiar with what a giraffe
Giraffe?
We
is.
can. Our units are usually like bears, eagles.
A boulder the size of a small boulder. Yeah, I guess that one.
No, we measure things by American flags here. That's what we do here.
I thought you stacked dollar bills to the moon.
We
We
like.
don't have money. It goes to only
Yeah.
a few.
I mean, the
people.
UK does it as well. We have double-decker buses, an area the size of Wales, the weight of a blue whale. Like, yeah.
Also, Canadian rugby team, shout out to the ladies who just kicked Wales' ass not 12 hours ago.
How many bananas is that?
Anything but the metric system, right?
Yeah.
No, I think the British are just inconsistent to be contrary because
It's between 135 and 180 bananas.
Who's your little friend there?
This is we have 3 jungle carpet pythons This one has a little marking on her head that I'm sure there's no way you could be able to see that. But it looks like a couple. It looks like a man and a woman facing each other. This little head
Aw.
stamp. And so I figured, okay, if that is Adam and Eve, then the snake herself is Eden. So that's what the name.
Oh,
How
Yeah.
clever.
that's adorable.
Good name.
Yeah, she's very cute, but she's also very bitey. She needs to get over that.
Ah,
And she'll get big. Like I have 2 6-footers in the other room. So.
Okay,
that is so cute.
Okay, on verse 4, the costs are to be paid by the royal treasury. Japhet comments, quote, "The remark about covering the construction's expenses is both important and problematic. On the one hand, it lays the responsibility of the construction's financing upon the royal treasury, in contrast to what is said in chapter 1, where the funding is supposed to come from the Judean people's charities. On the other hand, this commitment is formulated in a very general sense, without indicating the sum of money being used, or its sources. This matter is apparent considering Darius's instructions in verse 8, where it is explicitly stated that the expenses are paid, quote, out of the resources of the king, derived from the taxes of the province of beyond the river, end quote. The tax requirement was imposed over the governor, who was supposed to include it in the district's budget, and raise the money from the district's taxes. It could be that the lack of suitable financial sources was one of the reasons for the construction delay from Cyrus' days till Darius, as is apparent from Haggai's prophecies. On verse 5, the gold and silver articles of the house of God. These articles are not mentioned in Cyrus's decree, 1 verses 2 through 4, but are mentioned in the author's story in verses 7 through 11, and adds details about the way in which the articles were passed to the Judeans with the number of vessels returned. Japhet writes that the author of En borrowed the sources from 2 documents that he used, Cyrus's decree and Tattenai's letter, and presented them in his language in the opening chapter of the book, while incorporating another document which included more detailed information about the type and number of vessels. Eskenazi notes that in Masoretic text Jeremiah 27:16 through 26:6, they signify restoration. Moreover, quote, in an aniconic religion such as Israel's, returning the vessels resembles the returning of divine images to Babylonian temples, thereby the return of God to his abode. On verse 6, stay away from there. Eskenazi comments, quote, this instruction is of great significance. The verb resh chet kuf, followed by the preposition min, to distance oneself, appears several times in the Elephantine papyri, typically in the context of renouncing property. The expression functions legally as a quitclaim, quote-unquote, agreement, and probably means the same here, despite Blenkinsop's and Williamson's reservations. As Fried notes, it is not concerned with physical distancing. The injunction defines the relation between Persian authorities and Jerusalem's cult, restricting the role of the Persian governor or satrap. The same idea is reiterated in verse 7. Williamson, however, doubts that legal renouncing is meant here, given what he considers an ambiguity of the term in the Elephantine papyri. Blenkinsop believes that the analogy does not fit well because, quote, Tattenai was neither making an accusation nor staking a claim. He was simply seeking confirmation of a building permit, end quote. But the terminology and contexts in Elephantine are too striking to ignore, especially since verse 7 also turns over responsibility for building to the Judeans. The importance of such a conclusion cannot be overestimated. Blenkinsop notes that, quote, it was clearly Tattenai's responsibility to monitor what was going on anywhere within his jurisdiction, and the central government would be highly unlikely to exempt any part of it from supervision, end quote. Yet the letter specifically prescribes just that, no supervision. This is important to EN's overall agenda, in which forms of Judean authority emerge while under the umbrella of imperial rule.
Yeah, I did want to mention I think we mentioned it, he came up before. Tattenai was the name of the actual governor of this province where the Judean region would have been inside of. and he
Yep.
was the governor during the time of Darius the First. So actually, it does fit into the story if we set it in the period of Darius, which is So I don't know what that says about the people writing this. If it was just like, oh, we're writing about Darius, everyone knows that he had a governor at that time was called Tatanai, or if they lived quite close to the time period or not. I mean,
On verses 9 and 10, Becking comments, quote, "The purpose of building a temple, namely bringing fragrant offerings, as well as the listing of animals and food to be offered, make a very Judean impression. For some scholars, this is an indication that the Persian government meddled in a detailed way with the rebuilding and the function of the temple in Jerusalem, like Williamson. Others construe a clue that this letter is not authentic and only represents the ideology of the Ezra group. Young bulls, rams, and lambs are frequently referred to as sacrifice animals for daily offerings. For example, in Exodus 29:3, Leviticus 23:18, and Numbers 7. The same applies to wheat, wine, salt, and oil in Exodus 29:40. The Aramaic word for sweet-smelling, nichoach, is probably a Hebraism. In texts like Exodus 29:18, Leviticus 6:14, and Numbers 15:7, the elevation of a sweet aroma to God is also the purpose of the sacrifice. Layard correctly notes that, with this sacrifice, the Persian king is made dependent upon the local community and hence Yahweh for his well-being.
yeah. I mean, you could also translate it as like pleasing rather than fragrant, but
Yeah, I guess.
yeah, like it could be, pleasing smell, but I don't know if it doesn't necessarily have to mean that.
Okay, on verse 11, a beam is to be pulled from their house and they are to be impaled on it. Impaling was a well-known Persian practice, as attested by Herodotus in Histories 3:159, who claimed that Darius impaled 3,000 citizens when he conquered Babylon, and by the Behistun inscription, in which Darius claims, quote, "I sent an army in pursuit. Pharotes, seized, was led to me. I cut off his nose and ears and tongue and put out one eye. He was kept bound at my palace entrance. All the people saw him. Afterward, I impaled him at Ecbatana. The men who were with his foremost followed. Those at Ecbatana I flayed and hung out their hides stuffed with straw." End quote.
Oh,
I
wow.
get shock and awe, but man, that's just the levels of
I didn't know
creativity
taxidermy
and
was.
significance of this all.
Christ.
I didn't know
I don't know
taxidermy
about
was
you,
around
that
for
sounds
so
metal
long.
as fuck.
Yeah, you said it, man.
I mean, that's what Cannibal Corpse is all about, right?
Whoa.
Whoa,
So
where did that come from?
scarecrows out of human flesh.
Taxonomy aside, we're not
Yeah,
going to go there.
I can understand why a guillotine is considered quite humane.
Yes.
That's yep.
Yeah. So Becking writes that the image of the beam should be seen as precursor of the total collapse of the house of the offender, and that the house here is meant both physically and genealogically. Harrington notes Kidner's opinion that there is a certain poetic justice in Darius's decree. The one who tampers with God's house is punished with regard to his own house.
Yes, poetic.
On verse 12, several commentators take this verse to be a reworking by a Judean hand. The formula, "the God who established his name there," is a common formula in the Deuteronomistic writings, as we see in Deuteronomy 12:11, 14:23, Jeremiah 7:12, etc. Becking takes this reference to be an expression of Yahwism that doesn't fit easily with a memorandum of Persian origin. Fried, however, notes Richter's opinion that the Deuteronomistic formula is a mistranslation of the common Mesopotamian saying to place or inscribe his name there, i.e., God is taking ownership, quote-unquote, of the property and writing his name on it. She argues that the temple itself is the memorial of Yahweh's name, and the Deuteronomistic expression, to build a house of Yahweh's name, does not mean a place for the name to dwell, but a place that will enhance the God's reputation. Likewise, Van Setters argued that the Mesopotamian meaning of the phrase "to place one's name there" is the place where the God has caused his name to be written. According to him, the God has caused his name to be written. According to him, this place is the Torah, and the temple is the house of the Torah, the document on which Yahweh's name is written. Regardless, Fried concludes that the phrase cannot be authentic to Darius, and that the letter was simply amended.
Okay, amended.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, in general, it's like the letter is viewed as authentic, mostly authentic, with some emendations by Judean hands.
Fair enough.
Okay, on verse 14, Japhet notes that the mention of Artaxerxes the first here seems strange, since he ascended the throne 50 years after the completion of the temple, 465 through 425 BCE. And his mention here, in 517 BCE, is an anachronism. She suggested that the mention of Artaxerxes here is a later gloss, from somebody who was not aware of the order of the Persian kings. Rudolph suggested that the verse serves as an introduction to chapter 7, which portrays Artaxerxes' positive actions. However, as Fried notes, many commentators like Williamson, Blenkinsop, and Eskenazi see verse 14 as a grateful recognition that Artaxerxes did give approval for the completion of the city wall, as we see in Nehemiah 2:9, and acknowledges that in the process of building and dedicating the wall, the temple was dedicated anew.
So what you're saying is there's yet another example of human error in the Bible?
Yeah, you could say
Pretty
that.
much.
Yeah,
I would say we can
if
make a
this is
drinking
supposed
game
to
out of it,
be-
but we would probably be
Yeah.
dead after 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah, I think that the mistake could be them mixing up the Dariuses, because I mean, with Tatanai being the governor during Darius the First, and Darius the First being a not so far successor from Cyrus, it makes sense to be talking about Darius the First. And then where does Artaxerxes come in? He's not until, he's like the grandchild of Darius. But if the author had actually confused Darius the First with Darius the Second, then there is an Artaxerxes in between the two Dariuses, so it could make sense. But yeah, there is definitely an error there. It just makes more sense to just say that this edition shouldn't be there, and just play and make it all about Darius the First.
And Becking suggested that the narrator wishes to emphasize Persian support throughout, and hence mentioned in chapters 3 through 6 all common Persian emperors.
That's possible. They were definitely kissing a little bit of Persian ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. Like, I mean, we do have the whole thing with, like, Ahasuerus, who is normally written differently and is kind of shown to be like Esther kind of makes him as the father of Darius. And maybe they're actually talking about Xerxes the First over here rather than his son Artaxerxes the First. So Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes kind of makes sense to put together, especially if they then confuse those last two and put them in the wrong order in other books.
Gosh, it's so scrambled though. It's hard to keep track of who's who.
Well, I mean, the fact that there's only 5 of them mentioned in the Bible, when there were really like another 9 of them, is quite funny.
On verse 15, according to 1 Esdras 7:5, followed by Josephus in Antiquities 11:107, the temple was completed on the 23rd of Adar. Eskenazi notes that several scholars prefer this reading, like Blenkinsop, Williamson, and Fried, since it is more understandable that a number would fall off than it would be added. Bird explains that since Adar is the last month of the year, a week of celebratory dedication would lead naturally into the New Year festival at the start of the resumed temple. The Masoretic text reading, however, is preserved in other early translations, and is retained by Becking, Japhet, and Harrington, who also notes Steinman's opinion that the mention of Adar supports the authenticity of the Aramaic report, since Persian officials tended to name the months, rather than number them. Josephus claims that the temple was completed in the 9th year of Darius, i.e. the temple was constructed for 7 years.
I mean, yeah, if you're building a temple out of stone and you do not have modern crane technology, 7 years is actually remarkably fast.
On verse 17, the number of animals sacrificed in this verse pales in comparison to those at the dedication of Solomon's temple. 22,000 oxen, 120,000 sheep in 1 Kings 8:63, aka 2 Chronicles 7:5. These offerings are specified as purification offerings, chati in ketiv, chata'a in kerei. Eskenazi notes that Milgram already showed that the offering does not purify the person bringing it, but rather the sanctuary and its sancta. Such a ritual is especially pertinent when the rebuilt temple is dedicated. Yet, this cultic offering is the only act mentioned that shows concern with purity. She notes that this contrasts with the length ceremonies for purifying the altar and tabernacle in Exodus and Leviticus.
Now, when they do these sacrifices, just once again, they're not literally just sacrificing the whole thing. I mean, they don't just kill it and then burn it all up. They're actually cooking it and eating it, right? And this is the priesthood that gets to eat this, right?
Mostly,
I mean,
yes.
I will note that Eskenazi writes that this, I love this. The scene is primarily one of a large festival meal, a communal barbecue.
Texas barbecue.
I mean,
Texas
barbecues are
barbecue
pretty
and
spiritual.
that's true. All the people would have been able to eat of certain offerings. Some offerings only the priests would have been able to eat from. I mean, the idea with the Passover lamb is you bring it and sacrifice it, and then your family eats that lamb, leaving a portion, of course, for the priests. And here too, you would have some designated, for special use that might only be appropriate for the priests, and perhaps one or two that would in fact be burned entire for certain ceremonial reasons, but the large majority would in fact be consumed by the people, because when you're going to dedicate a new temple, you need to make a party out of it.
Yeah, there were certain sacrifices that everything was burnt, and I think every single sacrifice had at least certain parts completely burned up as an offering to God, and then some of them would be, as Lilith said, would be the Levites or the priests would eat, and priests would
I'm
get
sure
If
the
they didn't-
choicest morsels were for the Levites.
Of course. And if they actually did not eat this stuff, then that would just be a big waste of.
They couldn't eat it the next day.
Yeah, it would just be a complete waste. And it's a shame that they would just be entirely bloodthirsty to begin with. So I'm pleased to say that at least they're using it for a form of a feast,
I mean,
it makes sense that they offer more. It makes sense that they offer more sacrifices on days when there are more people to feed, but
it would make more sense.
Yeah,
it was also tradition for a long time in many parts of the world to make a sacrifice every time you ate. You pour out a libation for the god, or put a few choice morsels in for the god, and as a blessing, you were in a sense sharing your meal with the god. So that wasn't specific to Judaism or Israel.
No.
In fact, I don't think they would have been allowed to do that, because that would involve home shrines. But it was pretty culturally universal to involve God in your eating.
Can you imagine, guys, for a second, if,
after.
for example, God was a vegan, how pissed off he would be by all these blood sacrifices? It's like he just wants a salad, and instead you get all this meat and stuff. He'd probably be pissed off.
I don't know if
God was vegan. The Cain and Abel thing would have gone the other way.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, the God of the Bible can't be vegan, because I think vegans implies that they don't kill humans either. So
exactly.
Yeah, he loves the smell of burning flesh.
He really does.
Yeah, he's very. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vibe.
On verse 18, they installed the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their groups. Japhet notes that they
Did Tomer freeze for me or everybody?
Yeah,
all of us.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, kind of. I mean, she uses.
Go, Tomer, go back. You froze.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah. So start from the beginning.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Have your last comment, not the whole damn thing.
It only the beginning. It was only the beginning, so you didn't miss.
All right,
much.
back to Genesis we go.
Yeah.
Okay, on 18, they installed the priests in their divisions and the Levites in the groups. Japhet notes that the division of the temple servants into divisions, in Hebrew machlakot, is a relatively late development in the temple's worship organization, attested in Chronicles, as seen in 1 Chronicles 23:6, 24:1, 26:1. The source of this division is the need to organize the work order of the priests, whose number of people allowed to serve in the temple was much higher than the ongoing needs of the temple. During the early return from exile period, the priests were divided into 22 groups according to their father's household, as we see in Nehemiah 12:1-7.
Trevor Wright asks, if you had the chance to meet the historical Ezra, would you travel in a time machine to visit and to see what life was like back in those times? Yes or no? Well, I think I would owe it to my anthropology degree to do that.
Yeah, I think I definitely would, and then be like, "Hey, why are you such a fucking racist?"
Yeah.
And then he'd go, "What's the concept of race?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Whatever this stupid thing you have is against intermarriage."
And they would say, like, bro, literally everyone believes in it.
He would use those exact words too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
No,
English.
Ezra was, lots of people clearly didn't, since there was a lot of intermarriage for Ezra to rant about,
Yeah.
like a geriatric old racist on a porch who got drunk. An asshole.
Okay, on 21, all who had separated themselves from the unclean practices of their Gentile neighbors. Who were these people? According to 1 Esdras 7:13, these were part of the exiles. Sudarashi and Kimchi identify these people with proselytes who separated themselves from idolatry to cleave to Israel. This view is favored by Williamson, and Japhet raised the possibility that conversion is implied. Fried notes that the Persian Empire had foreign soldiers and Persian officers garrisoned everywhere throughout the empire, including Judah and Jerusalem. She writes that some of them may have joined the Jerusalem cult. Saadia and Ditani wrote that they divorced their foreign wives. Becking, however, following Rudolph, suggested that these were Israelites with a different form of religion. Harrington suggested that verse 21 refers to the absorption of local residents of Israelite extraction into the group of returning exiles. She writes that they were Yahwists who submitted to the authority of Zerubbabel and the teachings of the newly returned exiles. She writes that some Yahwists who had remained in the land were apparently willing to relinquish their syncretistic practices and submit to Zerubbabel's authority. And finally, on verse 22, the Lord had filled them with joy by changing the attitude of the king of Assyria. The reference to the king of Assyria here seems strange, given that Darius was the Persian king. Although it has been suggested that this is a textual corruption or a sign of historical ignorance, modern commentators take it as a general name for the Mesopotamian emperor, either Assyrian, Babylonian, or Persian. Indeed, some ancient Near Eastern texts state that Nebuchadnezzar II and Cyrus presented themselves as the successors of Ashurbanipal, the great Assyrian king. 1 Esdras 7:15 reads, King of the Assyrians, which Fried takes as making better sense. Eskenazi suggested that Assyria may allude to the exile of the northern kingdom. If this is the case, then reconstruction in Judah reverses the exile as well, so that Judah continues what is left of that previous Israel. She suggested that this may be a polemic against other claimants, such as Samaria, or conversely, a symbol of some reunification. Becking notes that although God is hardly mentioned as an actor, this closure to the narrative cycle of chapter 3 through 6 has a clear view on the narrated story. The positive outcome has become possible because God brought about a change in the heart of the king of Assyria. Now I have ancient Christians, but I see a comment, so maybe I'll need to prepare something.
Okay, Daring Puppy says, well, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Trevor writes, no, I read that one. All right, so Daring Puppy says, hello, Aaron. Finally came to a live. Just want to say thank you so much for your videos. I was lost in New Age faith for a long time. You brought me back to my childhood interest in the natural world. Thank you very kindly for that. And when I tell people that I get messages like this almost every day, this is my example for today. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Tomer.
That's wonderful.
I may fuck this up. I kind of prepared for it because I saw. Oh, there's another comment. Aaron, there's another comment. You might
Okay,
want
gotcha.
to read it first.
Mickey No Mates offers £5 and says, Yahweh changing somebody's attitude, another example of no free will. Exactly.
Well, it's, occasional free will. If he's not paying attention, we have free will. So maybe he's off killing a bunch of babies. He likes that, right? That's his favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, at least Islam is very, very explicit about there not being any free will, and God really controls everything. So at least they take all this stuff to its logical conclusion.
And if you pray just right, then maybe God will take a break from giving babies malaria and come down to your local area.
To fix the cataracts of your mum.
Yep.
Okay.
That is my favorite song by him, and it's got to be my most favorite religious hymn that I've ever heard in my life.
I love his intro to it too, how he totally goes for the bait and switch.
And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, look up Tim Minchin, Thank You God. It's fucking brilliant.
It's been a while since I've heard everything from.
Minchin is still going, still brilliant, still calling out shit.
Yeah, he played Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. Amazing, isn't it?
I know.
Anyway, Tomer.
Yeah. Okay, I hope I'm not fucking this up because I prepared the shit post for quite a while. So I fucked this up. I fucked this up again.
Those are the lyrics, right? I fucked this up.
No.
Oh.
Guess who's talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus? It's fucking Beat again. You're welcome. Okay. So yes, it's Bede. And guess what he says? So Cyrus proposed a plan for the temple from his own ideas and noted the measurements and arrangements of the work as seemed appropriate to him. Darius designates the dutiful devotion of those kings who, recognizing the will of God, endeavored not only not to resist the Christian faith, but also to assist it with their decrees. All the writers of sacred scripture promise good things for the builders of the Holy Church, i.e. teachers, if they do not tire from adversities and cease from their holy labor. The priests and the Levites and all the people rejoice in the dedication of the Lord's restored house, because all the orders of the Holy Church must share in the rejoicing when those who had sinned are reconciled by repenting. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds...
I mean, it's kind of tame in comparison to what you wrote.
A lot of these commentaries just sound like a lot of sermons I've heard, which is, I read and meditated on this story from, some book of the Bible, and it reminds me of this or that attribute of Christ or God or whatever, which is fine. I mean, you can draw analogies wherever you want to draw them. That's what they do. But yeah. This is very, very political speak. Oh, good kings and good Christian kings. And do you have any saints for like mass murderers? Look up the Catholic saints. They're totally fucked.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. So, chapter 7. I suppose I can read that now.
Are you sure?
Yes. I think
there might be a comment getting in the way, Lawrence. Might be another comment.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
you see how
Sailman
I feel?
offers $4.99 and says, "Hey, everyone, with the new Conjuring movie coming out, what is y'all's opinion on ED and Lorraine Warren?"
I think
Ed
Ed.
and Lorraine Warren.
Blimey.
Is that the
Lorraine.
Ed and Lorraine
Devil Made Me
Warren.
Do It case?
Ed and Lorraine Warren. Okay, not erectile
they?
dysfunction, and Lorraine Warren.
Couldn't give a shit. That's my opinion.
Never heard of them. Don't know anything about it.
Am I thinking of the right thing?
There's a Conjuring movie, whatever that is.
They were like self-taught demonologists and stuff like that, and like the Conjuring movies universe is like based
Were
on
they-
their.
You know why you
some of the
have to be
stories.
self-taught at that kind of shit?
Because it's made up.
Yeah. Nobody actually knows anything about it.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. Ed and Lorraine Warren were American paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of alleged hauntings. Self-taught, self-professed demonologist, author, and lecturer, Lorraine professed to be a clairvoyant and a light trance medium who worked closely with her husband.
Sorry.
Trance. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming we've got some automatic
Hey,
writing
hey.
stuff. Trance, not trans.
I love
Oh
it.
my
She
God.
claims.
Okay, yes,
claims
yes,
to be
they were the
clairvoyant, light, and a medium. Like,
They were the ones
okay.
associated with the Devil Made
Damn
Me Do It
lit part.
case.
Yeah,
She's like,
and I mean, this is people who take their LARPing way too seriously.
Yeah.
There's a
And
way.
if they just wanted to, play video games or board games or play pretend and leave the rest of us out of it, would be fine. To me, it reminds me of all those weird 70s and 80s books written in Christian circles by ex-witches who told the story of how they were overcome by the spirit and God, and they have this whole mythos built up in the background. I'm assuming these idiots are why people think that taking those electrometer things around and noticing electromagnetic current in
The radio
houses with
frequency
wiring.
Things.
Yeah, with electronic fucking wiring, as if that's not going to be everywhere, is signs of fucking paranormal activity.
They conflate energy with spiritualism, and that's they think, oh, because it's energy fields, that must be a ghost or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
still bullshitters.
At
It
the
is.
time
Why they're
when
only
we
good?
had, at the
Why
time
they're
when we
only
had
good?
13 seasons of Ghost Hunters, in every season they almost but didn't find anything.
Gotta
We
keep
only
them coming
had-
back, Arn.
We only had at that point one season of Cosmos. That's a damn shame.
It is.
Yeah, it's pretty obscene, but it's unfortunately what's popular. And I just wish people would be honest about having fun telling ghost stories, because that's fine, but they have to keep insisting that everyone else should pretend it's real 100% of the time, and it's ridiculous. It's nonsense. Also, quick, because they did mention the New Age stuff before. Good way to tell someone's full of shit is if they use the term energy.
I like it better when they pluralize it. You know how these believers like to pluralize things that shouldn't be pluralized?
Energies.
Yes.
Yeah. Evidences.
Evidences.
That's one that
Oh.
I hate that one so much.
Oh my God, that one's annoying.
That one just like, oh, I got the evidences of God. No, you don't know shit. God.
Yeah,
This
so
is
you
rough.
have mafifis and
Mhm.
la 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 na na na. So
Mhm.
that's there's the evidences of God. Yeah, look, energy in a scientific context, energy means the
Hate that.
capacity of a physical system to do physical work. There's obviously things are somewhat focused in different areas, local, whatever. But basically they'll all fall under that umbrella.
And whenever they
Words can mean
mention
different things in different contexts, but if anyone uses the word energy and quotes scientists and they're obviously not talking about that, they're lying.
what I like is when they make the mistake of mentioning some kind of a relative quantity of energy or energies, right? When you can focus your energies or have more, you derive more energy or whatever. How do you know? I mean, how is this measured? Is this ohms?
Calories. They're counting in
Joules.
calories.
Joules.
Calories,
You
Joules
visualize a
mean
blue
joules?
light.
joules,
make-
horsepower.
Yeah.
There you go.
Horsepower is I forgot. Fuck.
I think
forgot.
it's
Midichlorians.
it's measured in Lorentz's, no?
Lawrence's.
because
Lawrence's.
because
Actually, that's
Sorry.
because
the
it's
new
the
one,
feeling of
because they got
it's how
called out.
many it's the feeling of butterflies fluttering in your stomach. So,
They've
Lawrence.
started on, since they got called out on
Lawrence's.
quantum energy stuff so much, they've tried to steal biology, and they're talking about mitochondrial DNA being activated and shit like that.
They love to get these buzzwords that they think that they know because they hear it and the scientists are talking
They
about
have
that. This
no
must be
idea
real.
what a mitochondria is.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Who's that
They
one
don't know
guy
anything.
who writes a shit ton of like woo books?
Yeah,
Is it
you're
that
gonna have
Anthos
to
and
be
Genesis
way
guy?
more specific.
Kip Davis.
No, that's funny. No, the
There's only one.
oh my god, he's a he's pretty well known.
Eric
I-
von Däniken.
I always forget his name, but like there's like a bot that like you can like generate like titles for his books or something like that. And
Deepak Chopra.
yes,
Yes, that's
Oh, that
right.
guy.
Yes,
That was
yes.
Satan 616 was the one who thought that.
Okay,
I just read
I
his name.
always forget his
Thanks,
fucking name.
Satan.
What a fucking maniac.
Oh, he's nuts.
But how about we start with
Yes,
Ezra 7?
please start.
Yeah.
Oh,
End
that's
this
right. We're doing a book
misery
read, aren't
already.
we?
Yeah. After this, in the reign of King Artaxerxes of Persia, Ezra, son of Sariah, son of Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Shalom, son of Zadok, son of Ahitub, son of Amariah, son of Azariah, son of Merioth, son of Zariah, son of Uzi, son of Buki, son of Abishua, son of Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of the chief priest Aaron. This
Son of a
Ezra
bitch.
went up from Babylonia. He was a scribe skilled in the law of Moses that the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. And the king granted him all that he asked, for the hand of the Lord his God was upon him. Some of the people of Israel and some of the priests and Levites, the singers and gatekeepers and the temple servants also went up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes. They came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. On the 1st day of the 1st month, the journey up from Babylon was begun. And on the 1st day of the 5th month, he came to Jerusalem, for the gracious hand of his God was upon him. For Ezra had set, sorry if you guys hear the dog, he just does not shut up. For Ezra had set his heart to study the law of the Lord, and to do it, and to teach the statutes and ordinances in Israel. This is a copy of the letter that King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest and scribe, a scholar of the words of the commandments of the Lord and his statutes for Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to the priest Ezra, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven. Peace. And now I decree that any of the people of Israel or their priests or Levites in my kingdom who
That's Aramaic, by the way. The section is now Aramaic, not Hebrew.
That makes sense.
Beginning of
Now I decree that
Was going to
any
ask
of the
that
people
actually.
of Israel or their priests or Levites in my kingdom who freely offers to go to Jerusalem may go with you. For you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to make inquiries about Judah and Jerusalem according to the law of your God, which is in your hand. And man, they're just glazing this guy. And also to convey the silver and gold that the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, with all the silver and gold that you shall find in the whole province of Babylonia, and with the free will offerings of the people and the priests given willingly for the house of their God in Jerusalem. With this money, then you shall with all diligence buy bulls, rams, and lambs, and their grain offerings, and their drink offerings, and you shall offer them on the altar of the house of your God in Jerusalem. Whatever seems good to you and your colleagues to do with the rest of the silver and gold, you may do, according to the will of your God. This definitely not a made-up letter, guys.
I don't think
God
it is,
says I can
actually.
keep all the money and do whatever I want.
Yeah,
with it.
all
Dude.
I'm catching is a silver-tongued, manipulative asshole who got basic permissions and took advantage of a situation to step into a power vacuum and then pretend that he was ordained by God, which is, of course, totally unique and not something that happens all the fucking time with the worst people in the world.
Like I don't know the whole take whatever you want from Babylonia, as much gold as you can find, man.
Bullshit. Like, I'm sure they got a few gold and silver artifacts that they could prove were like, these are sacred artifacts to our divine God. We're not like going to melt them down and use them to buy soldiers to go against you. We like, they're for worship and shit. Maybe they got to take some of that back. But like the idea that, you're sent back with a couple of golden relics from your temple, that means that just, the king is bending over to give you all of everything you could ever want.
I mean,
but either way, I'm gonna continue.
Okay,
the reading.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm gonna continue the reading. Yes.
All right.
Let's see. Where was I? Yeah. Do whatever you do with all the gold. Do whatever you want to do with all the gold. The vessels that have been given you for the service of the house of your God, you shall deliver before the God of Jerusalem. And whatever else is required for the house of your God that you are responsible for providing, you may provide out of the king's treasury. I, King Artaxerxes, decree to all the treasurers in the province beyond the river, whatever the priest Ezra, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, requires of you, let it be done with all diligence. Up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and unlimited salt. Whatever is commanded by the God of heaven, let it be done with zeal for the house of the God of heaven, or wrath will come upon the realm of the king and his heirs. We also notify you that it shall not be lawful to impose tribute, custom, or toll on any of the priests, the Levites, the singers, the doorkeepers, the temple servants, or other servants of this house of God. And you, Ezra, according to the God-given wisdom you possess, appoint magistrates and judges who may judge all the people in the province beyond the river, who know the laws of your God, and you shall teach those who do not know them. All who will not obey the law of your God and the law of the king, let judgment be strictly executed on them, whether for death or for banishment or for confiscation of their goods or for imprisonment. Blessed be the Lord, the God of our ancestors. Because that's the end of the letter, I think.
Yeah.
Blessed be the Lord, the God of our ancestors, who put such a thing as this into the heart of the king to glorify the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, and who extended to me steadfast loves before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty officers. I took courage, for the hand of the Lord my God was upon me, and I gathered leaders from Israel to go up with me.
Ezra's literally like, I'm Moses. That's me.
Basically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Moses, like the character, how much of that do you think was like the final version of it was affected by Ezra's mythical idea of himself?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of things were borrowed.
Yeah, I'm not.
I have to wonder whether Artaxerxes would write a letter speaking almost exactly verbatim as Darius, and now I, King Darius, decree blah blah blah.
Well, that's probably how they were written.
Artaxerxes decree.
Yeah, that's probably how those decrees were written. But the issue is like the contents of these letters is very much like, they're really sucking up.
Yeah, I mean that's quite funny because the rabbis thought that they were the same person.
Yeah,
it's
Darius and Artaxerxes.
I don't understand how they could blow this much smoke up anyone's ass without. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But
I mean, it seems pretty obvious that like they're two different characters in this book, but for some reason they decided to squeeze them together. I think it's because Darius has to be the last king of Persia, and they didn't realize that there was more than one. So they're like, okay, yeah, Artaxerxes is after Darius, so he must be the same Darius. It's the same person. It's so stupid.
Bit of a stretch.
Funny.
It's also they had Pharaoh, but it was just Pharaoh. It wasn't Pharaoh anybody. It wasn't somebody Pharaoh. It was just Pharaoh.
Oh yeah, I mean there are two names. In the story of the Exodus, then they don't have a name, and also Moses. But when we actually get to more historical stories, they actually do have names like Necho and what was the other one? The other pharaoh that is mentioned in the Bible by
You're
name.
saying that the pharaoh.
Oh, was that Ramses?
Yeah,
the
Ramses.
city of Ramses was named.
The
but
city of Ramses is
Ramses,
mentioned.
The
Oh, right,
pharaoh
yeah.
was not named.
There's
the
Ninshira,
king
there's-
Necho is Necho is
The one who
mentioned,
killed
and Taharka.
Josiah.
That's the other one.
But if the
Okay.
city of Ramses was mentioned, then knowing how old the city of Ramses is means that Answers in Genesis and all of those people are wrong when they say that this was written 1500
Yeah,
BC.
they're most
Yep.
often wrong.
They're wrong about everything, though. Like that if there's the only thing you can consistently rely on them to be is just wrong in new and unfathomable ways.
Yeah, there are no answers in Genesis.
There's a lot of bullshit, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
if Ezra would lived at the time of Artaxerxes I, that would place him about between and like the 7th year would be about 470 BCE, and I think the story of Moses is not that old, right?
That wasn't
It's not that. I mean, it's like
Ptolemaic.
100 years
Was
off
it?
or something like that. It's
No,
not
I
like-
think that because
Wasn't
like
quite-
the best I can tell is that the story of Moses would have really started during like the Assyrian period.
Oh, okay. So it is an older
yeah, that makes
story,
more
but like
Yeah.
some of the bits about him might have been based on.
Yeah, so like
Okay.
because we do have a reference. I forget which prophet it's in, but there's a reference to an Exodus, but it doesn't say anything about Moses. So there is so there might have been like a combination of some of these things where they took like this hero figure Moses and then like attributed this Exodus event to him. But that's probably the best I can gather. It's really hard, honestly. There's not a lot to go off of. All the stories about him are written far later, and the any like earlier evidence is just so scant, and there's like a whole bunch of nothing.
I mean, we
so it's
have the
really
mention
hard
of
to
like
analyze it.
Aaron the priest, right? I mean, it doesn't. It says that it's a father-son relationship, but there's not enough generations to get from Moses, from Aaron to Ezra, and I think a lot of them are just names in the Bible of high priests of different periods, and they're not necessarily like. I don't think anywhere else says that they're like father-son. I think I mean, some of them, yeah,
seems to
but
be
that's
pretty
about it.
typical. Just getting to
Yeah.
someone, working your way to someone famous, and then just copy the list back as far as you have it. I mean, and
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah,
they
even
did the same with Jesus. They just
I think
copied
Zadok, the
back.
son of Ahituv, doesn't even make sense, right? Because weren't they like around at the same time? And I'm trying to remember that period, but whatever. Yeah. So maybe it's just supposed to be like a high priest's like lineage, not necessarily biological, but yeah,
That's true.
it's made up. So
These guys just want someone to tell them that they're important and they come from an important line of important people. It's it's like Caesar trying to trace his way back to Romulus. It's it's just
Mhm.
fucking
A lot of head patting. Hey, Tomer, so you got any stuff for us for this one?
No, I don't.
Not for 8. Okay. Or 7.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was looking at
I
8.
see a comment on. I mean, Aaron's not here, but
okay. Well, I mean, I can read it. I'm allowed to. So Mickey Gnome, 8, for €5.
Euro, yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting
Pound.
that polytheism is still in the wind. The Persians still don't follow Yahweh, even with such homage. Yeah. They like I said, they were totally fine with other people practicing their faith, like their own personal faith. The Romans and the Greeks were fine with it as well. Although it's a little bit different when it comes to the with the Romans, because they still wanted you to put the state religion in some high regard, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different there, but they would still let you practice your own thing on the side. Not a big deal. Rimmer's Briggery.
People have always pretended that it was a step in the right direction to become monotheistic, and I just think it's an example of the paradox of tolerance.
Oh, sure, I can see that. Yeah.
Wait, was someone reading a pound as a euro? I didn't hear.
Oh, is it a pound? Okay.
That's a pound.
Euro is an
E. I thought of it as a pound. Yeah, I thought it's a pound.
Pound is an L for
Sorry
Libra.
about that.
Okay.
And euro is an E.
Okay, so it's 5 pounds. Sorry.
It looks like an E, but it's not an E. It's an L.
Rimmer's Briggery at me. Was the Exodus not invented around the time of the return from Babylon? So the thing is, because we have references to an Exodus that predate that return, I think it might be in Hosea, actually. Double check me on where that reference is, but there is a reference to an Exodus, and it dates from the Assyrian period. And it's without the name of Moses. And I think it's in Hosea. It might be in Amos. But please double check me on that.
Seems more like the final form of the myth came about this time. Whereas,
yeah, the final form. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But it was based on some pre-existing myths and stories that may have had some tenuous connection with different realities. I mean, they smushed together Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, so it's not like, you could take 6 or 7 different origin story myth tales and go. Sorry, please continue, Lawrence.
I'll look it up. No, that was the only note I had on that. I'm going to look this up real quick. Tomer probably wants to start his commentary.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll start in verse 1 about Artaxerxes. Commentators generally take him to be Artaxerxes II, who ruled circa 405 through 359 BCE. Thus, if the events happened in the 7th year of Artaxerxes, verses 7 and 8, then the events of this chapter date to 398 BCE. Eskenazi writes that Egypt's successful revolt against Persia in 404 BCE and Artaxerxes II's inability to regain control likewise made this an opportune time for gaining support for Judah. Japhet, however, notes that there is a chronological gap between the time from the dedication of the temple in 516 to the 7th year of Artaxerxes in 398. This is why traditionals identify this Artaxerxes with Darius I, who ruled around that time. Likewise, Fried writes that the biblical writer has in mind that the Artaxerxes that the biblical writer has in mind is likely Darius, and writes that the author of En was unaware of the time gap. Josephus in Antiquities 11:120 has him as Xerxes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bit closer. Xerxes is a lot closer to Darius. It makes more sense because it comes right after Darius. You get this character, and Artaxerxes and Xerxes are very close. Naming in at least in the Aramaic version. So yeah, it makes sense maybe they're talking about Xerxes, but which would put it closer to Darius' time. But it's funny that the lot of traditionals literally just clump them together as one character.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Because I think it's because of their whole Darius is the last king. So how can you have a king after Darius? So stupid.
Don't know what empires are all about, do they?
I mean, it's possible that this whole, that the evidence might be pointing that, this whole story is very badly written and is not necessarily historical at all. And it's just here are a bunch of letters from some different periods by different kings, and let's just try and make it make sense. But yeah.
All right. Aw, does the dinosaur want to come out and play?
He was just he was welcoming you back.
Okay, on 1b through 5, Becking comments, quote, "This long family tree functions as an argument of authority. Ezra is presented as a descendant in a priestly line dating back to Mosaic times. He can therefore speak with authority. That Aaron is called a high priest is an anachronism, since the high priest's office was only installed after the exile. Moreover, this is the only place in the Hebrew Bible that refers to Aaron as a high priest. The Hebrew expression in verse 5, HaKohen HaRosh, deviates from the usual HaKohen HaGadol, and may thus best be translated by first priest. Hence, there is a claim tradition present, which aims to increase the authority of Ezra. In my view, in Becking's view, Gratz takes a step too far when he construes this genealogy as evidence for the Mosaic role of Ezra. Although both are drawn as leaders who brought back their people from a strange country, the differences are too great to construe Ezra as a second Moses.
I
don't buy that. I mean,
maybe he's
if you want to make a callback, you have to make the story a little bit different to make it, I don't know.
That seems a bit of a stretch to me on that one.
Okay, so on verse 6, a teacher well versed in the law of Moses. The Masoretic text has him as a sofer, i.e. a scribe. Harrington, citing Grabe, notes that the scribe's job was to take care of all those duties which involved reading and writing, including keeping records, inventories, and accounts. Blenkinsop notes that scribes were also overseeing the temple treasure in 2 Kings 12:11, being sent on important missions in 2 Kings 19:2-7, 22:14-20, and engaging in negotiations involving a knowledge of foreign languages, as we see in 2 Kings 18:18-27. He notes that throughout the Persian period, scribes of this kind were employed in the central government at satrapal and provincial courts. Becking notes that the title mahir, skilled, refers to a trained craftsman, as we see in Psalms 45:2, Proverbs 22:29, Isaiah 16:5. This title also appears in the story of Achikar from the Elephantine Papyri, dated circa 5th century BCE, describing Achikar as wise and skilled scribe, in Aramaic, Safar Chachim V'Mahir. Thus, the expression Mahir B'Torat Moshe indicates that he was skilled in copying and editing the old law traditions and applying them to the situation of his own days. It is, however, uncertain if the Torah of Moses refers to the Pentateuch, though Eskenazi takes Ezra's Torah to be largely the Pentateuch as we have it.
Yeah, that's a generous assumption.
On that same verse, the king has granted him everything he asked. Fried notes that this phrase is often viewed as an attempt to outdo the Nehemiah passage in Nehemiah 2:7-8. Since we have no record of Ezra having requested anything from the king, the biblical writer may have taken this phrase from the Nehemiah memoir. According to this memoir, quote, Nehemiah requests that the king provides letters of safe passage to the governors of beyond the river, as well as a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, for timber for his own house and for the city wall. The king agrees to supply these letters, an act that Nehemiah attributes to the gracious hand of my God upon me, quote unquote. On verses 7-9, Eskenazi comments, quote, verses 7-9 interrupts the flow between verses 6 and 10 with a digression that proleptically sums up the dates of the mission. The digression begins with the community that joins Ezra. The order in the list parallels that of chapter 2, aka Nehemiah 7, connecting this repatriation to the earlier return. Scholars like Williamson, Pakala, and Yu concur that this passage is a later editorial insertion. The proclivity to sum material up proleptically, flash forward, accounts also for 1, 5, and 6, which describes not only the return under Cyrus, but also those that follow. Here it affirms from the start the role of the community in Ezra's mission.
Yeah, so I found the verse I was talking about earlier. So this is Hosea 12:13. By a prophet, the Lord brought Israel up from Egypt, and by a prophet he was guarded. It has an unnamed prophet doing it. So there was some other tradition that was taken into the greater Moses story.
And considering that Egypt had been the garrisoning power there several times during its rise and fall of empires, I mean, that's a pretty generic reference, I would think.
on verse 10, in the Hebrew Bible, the expression inquiry of Yahweh, in Hebrew, Darash Yehovah, refers to inquiry by a prophet or a medium, as was seen 1 Samuel 9:9, 28:7, 1 Kings 22:8, etc. Here, Ezra dedicated himself to inquire the Torah of Yahweh, in Hebrew, Lidrosh et Torat Yehovah. Although the rabbinic understanding of Darash is that of a process of interpretation, i.e. Midrash, Fried, following Fishbane, takes this verse as indicating that the Torah had become an oracular device by which to inquire of Yahweh. A similar belief is attested in 1 Maccabees 3:48. Quote, "They opened the book of the law, Torah, to inquire into those matters about which the nations consulted the images of their gods." End quote. Thus, the passage could indicate that the Torah of Yahweh had taken on a hypostatic character and had become the icon of Yahweh from which one can obtain oracles. Likewise, Becking, following Alberts, takes the use of the verb darash here to indicate that the Torah was used to investigate or inquire the Torah in urgent questions of life.
Right, so it's magic 8-ball. I do love that the Baptist ladies who just, open the Bible at random and point to a verse and say that's God talking to them. Am I leading a rebellion, said Jesus, that you've come out with swords to capture me? Apparently that's what God is saying to me right now. That has a long-standing tradition.
Isn't it something the rabbis also have done?
Yeah,
Maybe
so
distinctly.
I'm not sure they would have
so
done it that
Chabad
way.
has a thing where we put write letters to the Rebbe and put it in his letters, because there's literally printed a whole shelf of books of his responses to people who wrote letters to him over the years. So if you write a letter and take a random book, put a letter in, and then open it to that page, you might see a letter that he wrote to someone else that might answer the same question that you have. And of course, when it doesn't work, no one remembers, and when it does work, it's a miracle.
Yeah. I got another comment. This one again from Mickey No Mates. Offers another £5.
Oh no! Lawrence already read it because you weren't here.
I did your job for you.
Well, thank you. Sorry about that. I got called away again.
I read that one, and I read the first one from Rimmer's Briggery. I got a second one though.
Okay, so the next one from Rimmer's Briggery is addressed to you, Lawrence. The David story is also kind of an Exodus myth.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. You still have this national hero that's kind of, in a way, saving the people, but it's more of it's I think it's more so nationalistic propaganda than the Exodus story. Obviously, both are propagandistic, but the David one focuses much more on the nation.
Yeah. I mean, they both obviously have God anointing someone and promising a heritage of continuing to serve in this role. But it seems to mythologically establish the power of the earthly kings, whereas Moses and Aaron and all of that establishes the predominance of the law and also the line of, which is why Ezra has to trace himself back to Aaron by hook or by crook. Aaron, rather. Sorry, Aaron. You have me too trained. I can't even think of the right name for the crazy guy with the stick. But yeah, it's
the crazy guy with the stick.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
There's another comment. Wow, a lot of comments.
Satan 616 number 2 says in Romania they named this book reading. The priest has you open the gospel with a cross, and where it lands is supposed to give you life advice.
Oh, yeah. See, that's what I was doing, but I didn't.
Kill all the males among the little ones.
I like how the Catholics keep the Bible at cross's length.
That's okay.
Sense. So I wrote a page and a half about the authenticity and the reliability of the letter. It's on verse 11. So, sorry. A copy of the letter King Artaxerxes had given to Ezra. Much speculation has been raised regarding the authenticity and reliability of this letter. Harrington writes that the authenticity of the letter is supported not only by its Persian expressions, but by the fact that it was in the Persians' interests to secure the province. Japhet writes that the Judean tone of the memorandum was given to the king by a person, either Ezra or a different counsel to the king, who knew the conditions in Judah and the ritual culture of the Judean community. She writes that this proves the authenticity of the letter, since it is inconceivable that a king like Artaxerxes would send a messenger that doesn't know the background and conditions of Judah, and would not consider them in the document. She writes that if the letter is authentic, then this is the earliest source in the Ezra narrative. Eskenazi notes Williamson's opinion that the use of Imperial Aramaic and the general similarity to other known Persian policies towards subject peoples support the letter's reliability. She also notes that Grabe, after examining orthography, epistolary formulae, and other documents from the era, as well as Persian policy toward the temples and cults, concluded that the letter has more authentic material and credibility than all but the letter of Tatenai. Other scholars, however, reject the authenticity of the letter. Eskenazi notes that Jansen considered the letter to be neither authentic nor reliable, but accepts the historicity of Ezra and his activities. Batten takes the discrepancy between the letter and Ezra's subsequent actions as evidence that the letter is a forgery. Pakala wrote that the letter is filled with Jewish religious elements, lacking essential elements of official correspondence, offering no clear reason why the Achaemenid king would have involved himself in local affairs, and provides for a fantastical donation to the temple. Becking writes that the letter is not an original Persian document, and that it was added to the Ezra material in later times. He writes that this addition took place during the start of the Maccabean uprising, since it indirectly supports the Maccabean endeavors. He writes, quote, "The claim that the temple in the time of Ezra was refounded with the help of the Persian government supports their struggle to undo the Hellenization of the temple in Jerusalem. Thus, the edict contains an indirect call to the Hellenistic rulers to act as Artaxerxes had done." End quote. Others take a middle approach. Fried considered certain portions of the letter to be authentic, verses 14, 9 through 21, 25, and 26, since nothing in them, quote, "prevents them from stemming from the Persian king," end quote. Eskenazi notes that Guneweg credits E.N.'s author with writing the letter, but that the letter is historically true, quote unquote, even if it had never existed apart from chapter 7, and it accurately represents an essential reality about Jewish life under Persia. Eskenazi writes, quote, "As is generally recognized, written authorization would have had to be issued if Ezra and his mission were historical. Some elements in the letter reflect what such an authorization would have had to include. Others, like extensive benefits, suggest embellishment."
Yeah, I think that like because of the high office, I guess you could call it, that Ezra held, like he would have a lot of he would obviously know a lot of stuff about Persian culture. He would be accustomed to reading texts like this. But I think the glazing is what it is for me. Absolute do whatever you want, take all the gold, like
the money is yours.
There are totally I get the argument, like, they want to procure the region, right? But like the thing is, they already conquered the rulers before it. So it is true that they were very like that they would give a lot to like local cults, and they would like help them like reestablish themselves. But I don't think this amount of glazing is a thing that would have historically happened like that.
That part of it couldn't be authentic. There could have been an authentic core of just the, go back, take your sacred articles, rebuild your stuff, get organized, do your shit. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of embellishment there.
No, it wasn't. They really said right there at that time that God decreed that I need a Cessna citation jet,
or he will kill me.
Everyone lose my mind just because I have 3 airplanes.
Yeah, so I could see the argument of like a historical
Copeland.
core,
God, I hate that guy.
but like thinking that this actually came from like the hand of Artaxerxes, I think is just cool.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like that's just, oh, can we send this people back? Sure, yeah. And then someone writes up a thing and uses the signet, whoever's authorized. Like maybe he signed off on sending the peoples of a region back under already established modes of you're allowed to start your own under these, rules, and you're, part of our kingdom, but you can rule yourselves locally and just, as long as we don't hear about it, shut up, we don't care. Yeah, fine. I'm sure he said, go ahead with that. But like, yeah, he's not sitting around writing up memorandums, kissing God's ass personally. Kings don't do that.
Okay, on verse 14, the king and his 7 advisors. Eskenazi comments, quote, Greek, biblical, and Persian sources mention 7 advisors of the Persian kings. Herodotus repeatedly mentions the 7 in Greek dikastai who helped Darius seize the throne. Xenophon writes that Cyrus the Younger convened, quote, the 7 noblest men, end quote, to consult about a weighty decision in Anabasis 164. The book of Esther has King Ahasuerus consult his 7 named advisors for a response to Queen Vashti's disobedience in Esther 1:13-15. The Behistun inscription lists the 6 men who had helped Darius gain the throne, lines 68 and 69. A group of 7 as a fixed element of the Persian royal establishment may not have actually existed, but the tradition about it seems widespread. The mention of counselors signals that Ezra's mission received wide-ranging approval from the royal administration and was not simply a personal favor driven by a whim. This contrasts with Nehemiah's commission, which was a personal concession to a favorite courtier in Nehemiah 2. 1 Esdras 8:11 has, quote, just as I and the 7 friends who are my counselors have decided, end quote. On that same verse, inquire about Judah and Jerusalem. The Aramaic for inquire is lebakara, from the verb bet kufreish, or bakar. The word is sometimes understood as to investigate, as we see in Septuagint, Pseudo-Rashi, Kimchi, and Ditrani. Japhet writes that this reading suggests that Ezra was checking the judicial system and condition in Judah and Jerusalem, according to God's laws. She notes, however, that this is the only instance where the root bakar appears with the preposition al. And so the meaning of this word here seems to be supervise or oversee, as in Ezekiel 34:12, quote, I will seek avaker my flock, end quote. Thus, Ezra was ordered to organize the judicial system, as is presented in verses 25 and 26. Harrington notes that according to the Qumran community rule, the overseer or mevaker supervises the community, as we see in 6, 11, 12, 19, and 20. Fried renders to act as the king's ear, following 1 Esdras 8:12, quote, to act as episkopos, with episkopos meaning investigator. She writes that as eyes and ears of the king, such individuals were, quote, independent of the satraps and other local authorities and reported any seditious speech or act directly to the king, end quote. Becking adds that, to the Hellenistic editor, Ezra has the task of implementing the Maccabean program. Vogel reads, to visit, probably reading bakar from Hebrew, or levaker from Hebrew, yeah.
It's so interesting, the Maccabeans, because that revolt was during the time of the Greek rulership, and that
Hellenistic,
whole, the Hellenistic reign, that's Greek. But they basically, a lot of the stuff in the Bible, there were a lot of things either written at that time or adapted and edited to serve the political part, the political aspirations of that time. But we don't, it's never covered as part of the Bible study stories. Like it wasn't in my illustrated Bible. None of that stuff is covered because it's not part of, these stories, even though it really affects it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
On verse 16, together with all the silver and gold you may obtain from the province of Babylon. Fried writes that it is a bit far-fetched to consider this phrase as a genuine component of the letter. Moreover, it breaks the connection between the gifts of the king and the gifts of the people mentioned in the second half of verse 16. She writes that the phrase should be viewed as a later addition to the letter, even later than when verse 15 was added. She writes that this suggests a text that was updated not just once, but continually, over long periods of time. She also adds that the title Province of Babylon, in Aramaic, Medinat Bavel, may have been an attempt by the Judean writer to denigrate the ancient enemy of Judah. She writes, however, that it is more likely that it signifies a political area with no technical meaning. On verses 17 and 18, Becking comments, quote, Ezra received this treasure of gold and silver for the purchase of sacrificial animals and the necessities for food offerings and sacrifices. In Numbers 15, instructions are given for animal sacrifices with the accompanying food offerings and pouring offerings. The narrative setting of these sacrifices in Numbers 15 is the forthcoming entry into the Promised Land. The sacrifices mentioned in verses 17 and 18 are in the narrative setting of the return in the Promised Land. Remarkable is the note that Ezra might use the surplus of these treasures at his own discretion. This remark emphasizes Ezra's importance. Williamson points out that in verses 20 through 24, financial arrangements are being made for the regular sacrificial cult. In his opinion, verses 17 and 18 refers to the special occasion of Thanksgiving for the safe return from the exile.
At least for some of them.
Mm-hmm.
On verse 23, whatever the God of heaven has prescribed. Japhet comments, quote, Artaxerxes explains his commitment to help the temple in Jerusalem, and his dedication to this matter, not as a gesture of Ezra or to the Judean exiles, but from religious motives regarding the peace and prosper of his kingdom. Any neglect regarding the God of heavens might cause a divine anger, and therefore a punishment upon his and his son's rule. This is an expression throughout negation to what Darius stated by positivity, when he ordered that sacrificing in the temple would be accompanied by a prayer to the welfare of the king and his sons in 610. We can speculate that these gestures also had political motives, and perhaps even military motives that are unknown to us.
And that's pretty typical to be like, yeah, you have to pray for the health of the king or whatever. Normally they would have the king's gods there. I think that was that. But yeah. We let you go back. You have to say nice things to your God for us. Okay.
On 24, Fried comments, quote, exemption of temple officials from taxation and tribute was not unusual in the Persian Empire. These were usually given as a quid pro quo for services rendered to the great king. The exemptions to the priests of Apollo in Asia Minor, to the priests of Nath in Egypt, and to the priests of Marduk in Babylon are other examples. The exemption from the Ilku or Chalak tax is an exemption from corvée labor. If the letter or this passage is historical, then Ezra would necessarily have come to Jerusalem after Nehemiah, in the 7th year of Artaxerxes II, in 398 BCE. Nehemiah had the priests help build Jerusalem's city wall, thus imposing corvée labor upon them in Nehemiah 3:1. He could not have done this had Ezra previously given them an exemption.
Interesting. So, I mean, these two characters are depicted as working together, but they seem to be a little bit...
Ezra and Nehemiah?
Yeah.
I think they operated in different time periods, if I remember correctly.
But they're both linked to the return and the rebuild of the temple, so...
Yeah, as part of the as leaders, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
On verse 25, Japhet writes that the practical meaning of this authorization of Ezra, as well as its consequences, are unclear. All the practical details regarding the matter are missing from the story. The implementation methods are not specified in the memorandum, and later in the story, we have no record of Ezra actually doing the role laid upon him. She notes that other sources do not provide every knowledge regarding such a reform in the judicial system of the Beyond the River district, or in the Judean district in general. She writes, quote, "One can speculate that Ezra carried out the two innovations that he introduced when he ruled over Judah, dealing with the issue of mixed marriages in chapters 9 and 10, and learning the Torah and reading it in public in Nehemiah 8, out of his authority, despite the lack of mention of Artaxerxes' memorandum, and the special authority that was given to Ezra in describing these events. According to the chronological data of EN, as we have, Ezra's stay in Jerusalem was short, and in the narrative regarding him, we are not told of his official status in Jerusalem, nor of the practical means that were provided for him. The lack of information and Ezra's short stay in Jerusalem raised doubts if Ezra actually did complete the main mission to which he was sent to. On 26, I don't know why I say 68. On 26, the law of your God and the law of the king. I swear I'm not drunk. Eskenazi comments, quote, King Artaxerxes proclaims that the law of Ezra's God and the law of the king are equally binding, both to be observed with rigor. To borrow the vocabulary of a later era, it establishes Israel's traditions as a licit religion in the empire. The exact relation between the two laws is more implicit than explicit. While most scholars concur that the reference to God's law is synonymous with the Torah in Ezra 7:10, they continue to debate its relation to the king's law here at 7:26. Blenkinsop concludes that the sentence's construction with data, law, repeated, indicates that the two are to be differentiated. Fensham, to the contrary, concludes that Artaxerxes identifies his law with the law of God, translating, quote, the law of your God, it is also the law of the king, end quote. Mayer and Bloom, along with Frey, find here proof that Pentateuchal law has become royal law.
Lawrence?
We lost Lawrence.
Oh, if he's having another
new
flood,
computer.
Maybe the cat played with the router or something. That could totally be a thing.
We'll see that if the picture comes back and you see a cat flying over the screen, then we'll know.
Oh, and
Lawrence
finally,
would never hurt a cat. He knows I would kill him.
And finally, 27 and 28, Japhet comments, quote, Ezra's response to receiving Artaxerxes' memorandum is a blessing to God. According to Ezra's viewpoint, and the writer of EN, the acts of the Persian kings are divinely inspired, whether they acknowledge it in 1:2 or not. God is the one, quote, who put it into the mind of the king, end quote, turned the king into God's messenger to magnify the temple, and caused Ezra to win the favor of the king, his councils and officers, to accomplish God's plan. The exact quote of the blessing with the phrase, the exact quote of the blessing with the phrase, blessed is Yahweh, in Hebrew, Baruch Yehovah, appears only here in EN, but the blessing matter returns in other places. In reading the Torah in Nehemiah 8:6, in the beginning of the Great Confession in Nehemiah 9:5, and in a secular context, quote, the people gave their blessing to all the men who willingly settled in Jerusalem, end quote, in Nehemiah 11:2.
So, Lawrence, you're back. I understand that the internet is a little spotty in a labyrinth.
It did kind of shit out for a little bit, but for now, at least I have it back.
Okay.
Oh, who?
Should we split up this chapter and I'll do the first part until like verse 20? Yeah, no, doesn't have to go that far actually.
Wait,
sorry, Aaron has to read it.
Aaron has to read it. It's the third chapter.
Just to be, just to also be clear. So after this, we have, so with this, considering this chapter, we have 3 chapters left, right? So we have 8, 9, and 10.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So so it comes down to, would you guys rather do 3 today and 2 next week?
I would like to have 3 because 9 and 10 are, holy moly, that's the 4
marriages. It's a lot of
so
we're gonna have a lot.
There
to
will be
say,
commentaries.
And Ezra, and I will say that I haven't finished with Ezra 10, but it'll probably be the longest commentary of Ezra. Like
Yeah,
I already have eight
Right.
8 pages, and like I have a lot of like things to
Okay,
finish.
you have to trim them
Yeah,
down.
that is
Yeah.
the
I
can.
intermarriage one.
So what
Okay,
you're saying
so
is
just-
bring your Game Boys and play for a while you're going through
Yes.
it. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a
Yes.
reason
Okay.
I have crochet.
Okay,
Okay.
so to speed things up, I will read the first 14
Wait,
verses, and
wait.
Aaron will do the rest.
Wait,
I don't think about that. I think
No. Isaac, take it. Just read it.
No,
wait,
no, I want to hear Aaron mispronounce
Oh,
names
do you have-
perfectly.
We don't have time for him mispronouncing names.
There are names in the rest of the chapter. It's just this one's just a list of names.
Okay, fine.
wait, we
Fine,
forgot
fine.
somebody. What does
Bede?
Bede have to say about
Yeah,
it?
there you go.
Yeah.
Ah!
So, according to Josephus, Artaxerxes was called Xerxes, and he reigned for 20 years after his father, Darius. Ezra rewrote not only the law, but also, as the common tradition of our forebears hold, the whole sequence of sacred scripture. Ezra typologically represents Christ, because as the Jews are brought from captivity in Babylon to freedom in Jerusalem by him, so the faithful are brought from the confession, quote-unquote, of the vices to the peace, quote-unquote, and serenity of the virtues by Christ. Artaxerxes, who in his own way pays homage to God's temple and priests with a most devout mind and offers willing service to him, like his predecessor Darius, signifies Christian rulers.
Ah.
And what does signify mean?
Yeah. It's interesting.
We're so special.
Oh, it's so
Interestingly,
So bad.
relevant to the Quran says that the Christians worship Jesus, and the Jews worship Ezra, or something like that. So, yeah,
That's kind of funny. They're
yeah,
not entirely wrong. I mean, they're kind of wrong, but they're not
I
entirely
don't know
wrong.
where they got it from. It's just really funny.
It's kind
Okay.
of funny. Yeah.
Chapter 8. These are the chiefs of the clans and the register of the genealogy of those who came up with me from Babylon in the reign of King Artaxerxes. Of the sons of Phinehas, Gershom. Of the sons of Itamar, Daniel. Of the sons of David, Chattush. Of the sons of Shechaniah. Of the sons of Pharosh, Zechariah. Through him, the genealogy of 150 males were registered. And I'm going to read all 150 right now. No, I'm joking.
Good. Good.
El-Yehoienai, the son of Zerachiah, of the sons of Pahath Moav, and with him 200 males. Of the sons of Yechaniah, son of Yechaziel, and with him 300 males. And of the sons of Adin, the Oved, the son of Jonathan, and with him 50 males. And of the sons of Elam, Yeshaiah, the son of Athaliah, and with him 70 males. And of the sons of Shephatiah, Zavadia, son of Michael, or Michael, and with him 80 males. Of the sons of Joab, Ovadia, son of Yechiel, and with him 218 males. And of the sons of Shelomit, the sons of Yosiphia, and with him 160 males. And of the sons of Bevai, or Bevai, Zechariah, son of Bevai, and with him 28 males. And of the sons of Asgard, Yohanan, or Yohanan, son of Hakatan, or son of the small one, and with him 110 males. And of the sons of Adonikam, who were the last, and these are their names, Eliphelet, Yeiel, Shemaiah, and with them 60 males. And of the sons of Bivgai, Uthai, and Zakur, and with them 70 males. And Aaron, you can take do the rest.
There's a lot of sausage there. Where are all the girls?
Yeah. Well, women aren't people, so they didn't feel the need to mention us.
Apparently.
We're just uterine projectiles. But yeah,
Projectiles.
Mr. and Mrs. Elchanai, son of. Blah,
All
blah,
right,
blah.
so I'm
they
picking
have
up
the
from
sons
verse
of Phinehas,
15.
Not Fur. Where's Fur?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I gathered them by the river that runs to Ahava, and there we camped 3 days. As I reviewed the people and the priests, I found there were none of the descendants of Levi. Then I sent for Eleazar, Ariel, Shemaiah, Elnathan, Jarib, Elnathan again, Elnathan number 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Then Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshulam, who were the leaders for Joyarib.
Yoyariv.
Joyarib. Joyarib?
No, you
Yes.
said it right the
Joyarib.
first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Elnathan, the third
Yes.
Elnathan, who
Yes.
were wise, and sent them to Edo, then the leader of the place called Casaphia, telling them what to say to Edo and his colleagues, that the temple servants at Casaphia, namely, to send us ministers for the house of our God. Since the gracious hand of our God was upon us, they brought us a man of discretion, of the descendants of Mali, son of Levi, son of Israel, namely Sherebiah, with his sons and kin 18. Also, Hashabiah with him, and Jeshiah of the descendants of Merari. You see, Isaac, you could have just continued. With his kin and their sons 20, besides 220 of the temple servants from David and his officials had set apart to attend the Levites. These were all mentioned by name. Then I proclaimed a fast there at the river Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our God, to seek from him a safe journey for ourselves, our children, and all our possessions. For I was ashamed to ask the king for a band of soldiers and cavalry to protect us against the enemy on our way, since we had told the king that the hand of God is gracious to all who seek him, but his power and his wrath are against those who forsake him. So we fasted and petitioned our God for this, and he listened to our entreaty. Then I set apart 12 of the leading priests, Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of their kin with them. And I weighed out to them the silver and the gold and the vessels and the offering for the house of our God, that the king, his counselors, his lords, and all Israel there present had offered. I weighed out into their hand 650 talents of silver, and 100 silver vessels worth talents, and 100 talents of gold, 20 gold bowls worth 1,000 derricks, and 2 vessels of fine polished bronze as precious as gold. Then I said to them, you are holy to the Lord, and the vessels are holy, and the silver and the gold are a free will offering to the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Guard them and keep them until you weigh them before the chief priests and the Levites and the heads of the families in Israel at Jerusalem within the chambers of the house of the Lord. So the priests and the Levites took over the silver, the gold, and the vessels that they were weighed out to bring them to Jerusalem, to the house of God. Then we left the river Ahava on the 12th day of the first month to go to Jerusalem. The hand of our God was upon us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy and from the ambushes along the way. We came to Jerusalem and remained there 3 days. On the 4th day, within the house of our God, the silver, the gold, and the vessels were weighed into the hands of the priest Meramoth, son of Uriah, and with him Eleazar, son of Phinehas, and with them were the Levites, Jozabad, son of Jeshua, and Noadiah, son of Binnui. And the total was counted and weighed, and the weight of everything was recorded. At that time, those who had come from captivity, the returned exiles, often offered burnt offerings to the God of Israel. 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, and as a sin offering, 12 male goats. All of this was burnt offering for the Lord. They also delivered the king's commissions to the king's satraps and to the governors of the province beyond the river, and they supported the people and the house of God. And this whole thing didn't need to be in the Bible at all.
Nope.
It depends on who you ask. I mean, again, I know that people will say this does not relate to the Bible, but again, I in my opinion,
the Bible isn't
everything
about Jesus.
Yes, that's one thing, and the other thing, like, there are reasons that these things were written. Like, and there are reasons why these were included in the canon. So like,
yeah, but those reasons aren't relevant to us. I mean, they're
yes,
relevant to us studying, but not relevant to our lives.
not relevant to our lives, but they are relevant to the Bible, or at least to the time period where the Bible was written.
And we should note that like the formation of canon is far more complicated than like, oh, here's just the stuff about God. Like it's like it's authoritative texts. You have your wisdom texts. A lot of it, you could say like, oh, it's the stuff that's supposed to precursor Jesus. But then a lot of it was like already accepted without the Jesus stuff. The formation of canon is pretty complicated. It's very messy waters. Some communities accepted a text as authoritative while others didn't. A great book on this is the Biblical Canon from Lee Martin McDonald. That's probably one of the better books I've read on canon. I am currently actually working on a video for it's about the Council of Rome in 382, and how a canon was later attributed to that council, but they never actually talked about a canon there. But either way, it's I think it'll be an interesting little video as to how people bullshit what happened in the past.
Oh yeah.
I think that we should
make
just
sense to say.
we could just fire this out of the canon. I would be okay with that too.
Well, and these things don't belong in the Bible if you want to believe that it's a magical book dictated by God that is especially relevant to your life and timeless and eternal, and is only about how important you are to God, because maximum of solipsism with the maximum of
I would
it's just
I would disagree with this, mainly because this is an ancient text. And
no, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
If you take it as what it is, a collection of writings involving the beliefs and historical myths of the Jewish people and their concept of God and spirituality and the history of that progression, then all of this is comparatively relevant.
The mythologies of our world tell the story of the human race. So it's important to keep these texts in context as well for that, to preserve them as we can, to understand them. But it's when you start taking things literally as this is actually the truth without recognizing it's just a cultural concept like a myth or a legend, that's when it becomes dangerous, and that's when it becomes problematic.
I will say that like the stories of Ezra are, I would say, relatively true or historical compared to other stories in the Bible, especially when it comes to the
they're definitely a bit more that way. I mean,
I'll give you that.
Heavily shaded, but
The problem is though is that how can you discern what is an actual fact in this book compared to things that we know are allegory or mythology? It's really difficult to tell.
That's why critical analysis exists.
And alternate sources, because otherwise you can't corroborate evidence. That's how I view it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with verse 1. These are the family heads. The origin of the list is unclear, with scholars like Batten, Horscher, and Kellerman regarding it as a later addition, while others like Inde Smitten and Blenkinsop take it as original to the context. Eskenazi notes Williamson's opinion that the list was originally independent, but was embedded early into its present literary setting. Based on literary grounds, he concluded that it reflects accurately the participants of Ezra's return. Japhet writes that the list represents an authentic picture of the households in Judah during the return from exile period. However, Becking considers the list to be, quote, an ad hoc composition which, in particular, aims to express a view about the forthcoming community around Jerusalem, end quote. Likewise, Fried writes that the list and the introduction to it were likely added to the Ezra story by a late author, who inserted 7:7 and the story of the search for the Levites in verses 15 through 20. On verse 2, of the descendants of David Chattush, Hattush is the only heir to the Davidic line who is explicitly mentioned in En. Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, was also a descendant of David in 1 Chronicles 3:19, but it is not stated in En. Hattush is listed as the son of Shemaiah on 1 Chronicles 3:22 and in 1 Esdras 8:29, but it is unclear how he is related to Zerubbabel. We have no other information regarding this Hattush in other sources, and it is unclear if the House of David had any special position during the Second Temple period. Eskenazi writes that the brevity of the reference underscores En's the emphasis on the Davidic house. Japhet, however, writes that the mention of Hattush either represents hopes for the renewal of the Davidic kingdom, or that it was a symbolic gesture for the continuation between the kingdom period and the return from exile period.
I thought that was just something Jack Black liked to say. No, that's skadoosh. Sorry.
Ugh.
Trevor and Wright
Okay.
says, was the genealogy mentioned in Ezra 6 invented to serve the narrative of the story and to place the story within a specific time and regional context?
In 6 or 8?
In 6.
Because I don't think there is a genealogy in 6. There is genealogy in 8.
Ezra's
Maybe.
introduction, maybe.
Oh, no, there's
Like
not. There's
Ezra's
not
genealogy.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
it's
I wouldn't
it's
use
not-
that as.
In 6, there's
Was that not
a
6?
genealogy.
Oh, that's in 7. Oh, okay.
It's in 7, yeah. 7.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, someone in the comments says that it's copied from 1 Chronicles 6, but
Oh, First Chronicles. Okay.
that's I think that he's talking about Ezra's one because it's got Yehoshaphat in it,
The thing is,
son of Shemaiah.
Chronicles would have been written about the same time.
Sorry, the son of.
So, but like the thing is, the book of genealogy, like when we were covering Genesis, for example,
Son of Sarai.
there are entire sections that are just like you have your stories, but then they are interlaced with just random genealogies here and there. There is like a long-standing idea of there being a book of genealogy that was used for like all these for quite a lot of these texts. Like
there are even references to it in the text where they're like, and we took this from genealogy.
And when it comes to like some like older figures like Aaron or Moses or whoever would appear in these things, when it comes to those founders of that genetic line, you could say, we have plenty of.
Oh, wait, we lost.
We
lost
have
Lawrence?
plenty of robots. You know what it reminds me of the
Can't be internet.
the Muslim thing.
Am
where
I back? Am I back?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes,
You are back.
Hello.
Crazy. Welcome back.
Hello. Am I back? Have I returned?
Yes, you are
Yes.
back. You are back.
Okay. So, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted.
By your own
internet. Yeah, I know. We have a lot of evidence from the ancient world that the further back you go in a genealogy or any kind of list with a bunch of names, like King's lists as well, that some people are just like, obviously, like these guys didn't exist or this person has been mythologized. You get for the Turin canon, for example, the King's list, that the earliest kings of Egypt were said to be, first they were gods, and then they were spirit kings, and then eventually you get to actual real kings, but they're all part of the same list. So it doesn't really tell you, if a certain person.
Nobody tell the hippies. They'll go on a drug trip and channel Thoth again.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it doesn't really tell you if like a person in like the ancient past is historical or not. So it's not like
at some
huge,
point
but
it gets
they have
pretty blurred.
Books of genealogies, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and those genealogies can absolutely serve ideological purposes at the time, like with Jesus genealogies, and you can see the deliberate attempt to tie him back to certain groups. So it's something that we observe and may have some level of accuracy, but I'm still reminded of the tradition in certain, I think in Iran particularly, where it's certain types of priests, if you know who to bribe, you can get your genealogy traced back to somehow being a descendant of Muhammad. And then you get to wear a special differently colored turban as a rabbi. So, or not a rabbi,
Yeah.
mullahs.
A
Right.
Muslim rabbi. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Whoever the asshole is who preaches and tells you what to do and takes your money.
I mean, I've heard Tim called many things, but I don't know if you should call Baba Sali a Muslim rabbi.
Baba Sali, no. It's just Mizrahi rabbi.
I know, I'm
Kabbalist
joking.
Mizrahi rabbi, but like, which people have him like, doing magical stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
he just doesn't look like a Western rabbi, so.
No, he doesn't. But fun fact.
Is it
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
though?
No, I was
Baba
just saying.
Sali, probably.
Fun fact: Judaism is not just Ashkenazi. Okay.
Yeah.
On 3 through 14, Fried comments, quote, "The author of this list is keen to present 12 families of lay people preceded first by sons of the 2 high priestly families, and then by the Sion of David. Sion, of David. The list of names of the laity here is nearly identical to that of the list in Ezra 2 or Nehemiah 7. The two family names are missing here that are in that list, Arach and Zakkai. These may have been omitted by accident, or they may have been omitted so that only 12 lay families are included. The absence of Levites, singers, gatekeepers, and temple servants must be considered a purposeful omission on the part of the author to enable Ezra to secure for them in Cassiphia in verse 17, and so prove how concerned he was for the cult and for the appropriate personnel to carry the vessels to be dedicated to the temple. Indeed,
So
the entire
you're telling me that this was deliberately altered for reasons of making the story fit better.
Yeah, they had to write a special side quest for Ezra to prove how very seriously he took this.
Okay. Just another element of human tampering.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because the same book has like, this family came up with what's his name, Sheshbazzar or Zerubbabel, and then we have later on in a different king, these families came with me, Ezra, and it's the same families that were mentioned earlier. When you could argue that like it's members of the same family, but I think the way it has like a leader's name, it doesn't make sense that the same leader is in both places. It came at 2 different times.
Yeah.
Indeed, the entire purpose of the list may have been just that, to allow the search for the Levites.
Mm-hmm.
On verse 15, Ahava. Ahava is mentioned 3 times in this chapter, with verses 21 and 31 claiming that it was a river. Just check real quick. How is it pronounced? Ahava, yeah. The location of Ahava is unknown and is not attested in other ancient Near Eastern sources. First Esdras 8:41 reads Thera and Septuagint Eui, which is also the name of the Midianite ruler Evei, defeated by Moses in Numbers 31:8. Becking notes that Rawlinson proposed an identification with the current name Hit. This place lies 8 days away from Babylon and is possibly identical with the place named Is, mentioned by Herodotus in Histories 179. Blenkinsop identified it with Skenai, a city located at a canal near the border of Babylon, which is mentioned by Strabo in Geography 16:1 and 27. Geography 16:127. Becking, however, concludes, that these proposals are not very convincing. On that same verse, when I checked among the people and the priests, I found no Levites there. Eskenazi comments, quote, "The absence of Levites is striking. No explanation is given. Their absence could have resulted from control by priests and competition among cultic personnel regarding responsibilities and resources." Nehemiah 13:4-13 records Nehemiah's efforts to ensure that Levitical provisions are maintained. Nehemiah 12:27 reflects some problems, leading Levites to retreat from Jerusalem. Rabbinic literature discusses the absence of Levites and at length in improbable terms. Some argue that Ezra fined them as a result in Talmud Yevamot 96b. Others explain that the Levites earlier had mutilated themselves in order to avoid singing for Nebuchadnezzar, as was in Pseudo-Rashi and Talmud Kiddushin 69b. Williamson, however, does not regard obtaining Levites as a sign of tension. Quoting Koch, he supposes that the delay to recruit Levites is intelligible, quote, only against the background of the order of the march through the desert after the original Exodus, in accordance with the priestly sources, Numbers 10:13 forward. There must be Levites with special tasks, as well as priests and laymen, with Ezra also, end quote. At any rate, Ezra literally goes out of his way to make it clear that Levites are essential.
Very much reinforces the narrative of him as, spearheading the effort to follow the Torah and the legalities and the requirements of proper worship and whatever that was supposed to be. So, yeah, you can see why they wrote that story for him.
On verse 16, the list given here has several issues. The name El-Nathan is repeated 3 times, and the conjunction to Yarib and to El-Nathan is very similar to Yoyarib and El-Nathan, the instructors. Japhet takes the first Yarib and El-Nathan to be a doublet from Yoyarib and El-Nathan. Thus, the delegation had 7 leading men, including El-Nathan and Nathan, and 2 instructors. First Esdras 8:44 omits Yoyarib and El-Nathan, and combines all the men into one group, leaders and men of understanding, quote-unquote. Septuagint has the first El-Nathan as Ma'onam, and reads that Ezra sent intelligent people to the men in the list, without specifying their roles.
Okay.
On verse 17, Kasifia. This place is only mentioned in this verse, and its location is unclear. Some suggest that the word is derived from kesef, silver, compare Septuagint, the silver of the place, and may refer to a place related to silver mines, or a locale where silversmith guilds settled, or an administrative center for collecting taxes. Fried notes that some identified it with Tel Kashap, which may refer to the Assyrian town Kasapi, located on the greater Zab River. She writes, however, that this place is too far north from Babylon. Japhet notes that many commentators like Rudolph, Williamson, and Blenkinsop take the place, Hamakom, to be a name for a holy site, since Makom is used elsewhere in the Bible to describe such sites, as we see in Isaiah 18:7 and 66:1. Accordingly, Ezra knew of an existing temple in Kasifia, and about the temple servants who were there. She notes that Rudolph and Blenkinsop suggested that this was a training school for temple servants, also Harrington, but Luchter suggested that there was a Levitical religious center in which the tradition of the Levitical writers was established and improved. She writes that if this theory is correct, then this would be evidence for temples of Yahweh's worship within the Judean diaspora of Babylon. She notes, however, that we have no physical evidence of such temples.
True enough, I suppose.
So it's all made up.
Not necessarily.
I mean,
Speculation.
it would be weird to make up something that kind of goes against the idea of like you're not allowed to do like temple worship outside the temple in Jerusalem. So, like the idea of it being like some sort of school or something makes kind of sense.
Yeah, well, admittedly, it's all.
I mean, this
very,
whole side quest is probably completely fictional, so yeah.
Oh, that much is true.
Yeah. Okay, so on verse 18, Fried comments, quote, "The direct object marker to indicate whom they brought us does not appear in front of Sherebia, but only Chashavia in the next verse. This verse may have been inserted by the Levitical author to foreshadow his reference to the Levites in Nehemiah 8. Sherebia is described here as a man of discernment, in Hebrew sechel, and in Nehemiah 8 he is listed among the Levites who put discernment and understanding in the minds of the listeners. He appears prominently in Nehemiah 9 as well as among those who signed the Amana in Nehemiah 10, but the name does not appear in any of the lists of Levites in Chronicles, nor among the wall builders in Nehemiah 3, nor among any of the texts that might belong to Nehemiah's authentic memoir." On verse 21, I proclaimed a fast. Eskenazi comments, quote, fasting in the Bible and in the ancient world is a commonly recognized ritual of penance, purification, and beseeching divine powers for help. Often, as here, fasts are accompanied by prayer. Such behavior plays a role at several points in EN, as we see in 10.6 and Nehemiah 9.1. The purpose of the present fast is to elicit God's compassion and support. Somebody's microphone is louder or something. Oh,
That was me. Sorry.
okay.
Apologize.
Daniel L. Smith Christopher, who notes the growing emphasis on fasting in the post-exilic period, has suggested that fasting was developed as a tool of nonviolent resistance to political oppression. This is evident in E.N. and in Daniel. In her book on religious feasting and fasting, Caroline W. Bynum shows how fasting allowed Christian women in medieval Europe to exert control over their lives and bodies within the confines of a limiting culture. In EN, it may reflect certain resistance with accommodation to imperial rule by means of allegiance to other sources of authority and power.
Fasting of some kind is a pretty universal religious practice to some degree. Like the cycles of cultures that are entrenched with religion, the medieval Christians, the Jews, but also Hindus and everybody else. There's this cycle of fasting and feasting. And fasting doesn't necessarily always mean not eating anything. It might mean, restricting all of the fun bits out of your diet, eating very plain, simple, healthy food, and less of it for a period of time. And then you have a feast, and then you sort of go all out. You kind of your Lent to Easter thing. They used to have the same for Christmas back in, Tudor times and the 12 days of Christmas and stuff. You would be on a restricted diet up until the days of feasting, and then you would have partying. So you get this kind of natural flow to it of less and then more, and then less and then more.
Got a comment from Chrissy that says, Lawrence, I know it's off topic, but are you going to set up a fundraiser for the Milwaukee Atheist studio equipment?
I mean, we might. We're not even sure, like, after the rebrand, like, how we want to do everything. So, if we want to, we'll probably set up, like, another
after
place to do the show. But we're not sure exactly what we're going to need for that. So, we're not doing any kind of fundraiser yet. We don't know exactly how much everything is going to cost. We might do a fundraiser. It depends.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, on 22. It is surprising that Ezra rejects an escort from the king, in contrast to Nehemiah, who has done this in Nehemiah 2:7-9. Freed notes that commentators have generally viewed Ezra's rejection of an armed group as the biblical writers' attempt to outdo Nehemiah's accompaniment of foot soldiers and cavalry on his trip to Jerusalem in Nehemiah 2:9. She writes, however, that Nehemiah, in his role of governor, is bringing this force with him to take over the citadel in Jerusalem, and not for his personal protection. Becking notes that the verb form boshti may be derived from the verb of bosh, to be ashamed, and thus Ezra would have been too embarrassed to ask the Persian king, according to Williamson and Blenkinsop. He notes that the verb could also mean to linger or to tarry. Thus, Ezra would have let pass by his chance by being slow. He notes, however, that in view of the fact that Ezra is drawn in these chapters as a resolute person, preference must be given to the first possibility. He writes, quote, the second part of the verse 2 pleads for such an interpretation. The narrative shifts to the we form and reports that the king had already given a short confession of faith in God. This expression is traditional in nature and expresses both sides of the testimony on God in the Hebrew Bible. God is good for those who follow him, but his blazing wrath turns against those who forsake him. Grabe pointed out that Ezra's refusal to request imperial protection was completely unrealistic given the enormous value he transported and the expected presence of highwaymen and ambushes on the way. This detail is an additional argument for the fictionality of the pseudepigraphic writing of the Book of Ezra.
Yeah, that's it very much gives off the missionaries who talk about how they had no protection and they just prayed and God came through for them. And as long as you don't actually ask any questions or find out what happened behind the scenes, you can totally believe that.
I mean, it does come across a bit like, oh yeah, we had told the king that we don't need protection, but actually we were scared and we did need. And then I was embarrassed to ask the king for soldiers because I already said like, oh, we don't need it. And so then
Because
they're
our
like,
God is
oh,
so mighty, he will protect us, but we knew we were full of shit.
yeah. So so then they're like, oh, let's fast and pray God to like protect us like after the fact. Quite funny.
Yeah, it just sounds like
they're like,
bullshit that
oh,
was
God
written
will
later
protect.
to make him sound good to the over pious.
On 24, then I set apart 12 of the leading priests. Eskenazi notes that to separate and set apart becomes an important idea and practice throughout EN, with the root Bet Dalet Lamed appearing more often in EN 9 times, more than any other book more often in EN 9 times than any other biblical book, in which includes 8 in Leviticus. Citing Carter, she writes that in this verse, as well as in the rest of EN, the sense of Bet Dalet Lamed, the root refers to the selection of people or tribes for particular cultic duties, as we see in Numbers 8:14 and Deuteronomy 10:8. She notes that the term and its implications become significant for assessing what chapters 9 and 10 claims about the crisis of intermarriage, quote unquote.
Yeah.
It's a word that's used quite a lot, like to do with like separating holy things from the mundane. For example, like the end of Saturday, end of the Sabbath, before you like do anything that you don't normally do during the Sabbath, you will say something or do a little ceremony where you make this difference, this havdalah between
Blessing.
the sacred and the so like the whole ceremony with the candle and whatever.
Right.
So you make a blessing, like blessed God who will have deal, who makes a difference, who separates ben kodesh la kodesh or ben kodesh la chol, between holy and mundane, or between holy and holy.
Okay. I mean, that's that sounds very familiar for practices. I mean, some Christians, particularly Catholics, will cross themselves before anything they're nervous about. You know, Muslims have lists and lists and lists and lists of prayers they could say before, during, and after every conceivable activity, if they want to be sure to die with the name of Allah on their lips, which is exhausting.
I mean, in Judaism, there's a blessing to say if you see an elephant or an ape.
Yeah. So same thing, just maybe not quite as pushed to literally practice here.
Yeah, it's like, blessed God that created many forms of life or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, on 26 and 27, Japhet notes that the quantities of silver and gold are extremely high. She calculates an amount of 22,000 kilograms, or 48,501 pounds, for the silver, 3,360 kilograms, or 7,407 pounds, for the gold, and 8,400 kilograms for the darics, and 3,360 kilograms for the silver talents. She writes that such numbers can hardly be considered reliable, and attempts to explain them as an exceptional generosity from the Persian king, or as coming from the vast richness of the Babylonian Jews, like in Josephus, Antiquities 11:136, are unconvincing. She suggests that the values of silver and gold are exaggerated, meant to magnify the donation's scale. Peshitta has 150 talents of silver.
So what she's saying is human influence changed this story. I'm kind of seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
Yes,
as you
indeed.
would expect. On 31, on the 12th day of the first month. The journey begins 2 days before the Passover, occurring in the 14th day of the month. It is more surprising that there is no mention of Passover, which plays a significant role in 6:19 through 22. Fried writes that the biblical writer may have assumed that the laws of Deuteronomy were not in force, so that the Passover could only be celebrated in Jerusalem, as we see in Deuteronomy 16, 5-7. Or that if Kasifia was a Yahwistic cult place, then Ezra could have celebrated the Passover there. She suggests, however, that the author of this passage and of the original portions of this chapter did not know about Passover, and that the author may have been Ezra himself, the royal episcopos, and Ezra who knew nothing of either Passover, or of the Torah scroll. On 32-34, Becking comments, quote, "A date for the arrival in Jerusalem is not given. Apparently, the duration of the trip is not important. The narrator emphasizes that a rest period of 3 days is also taken on arrival. On the 4th day, the gold, silver, and cultic utensils are handed over in the temple to a committee composed of priests and Levites. Since a single and unique event is described here, it seems unlikely that there would have been a permanent committee as the possible parallel which Nehemiah 13:13 might suppose. In Nehemiah 13, however, a group of priests and Levites is referred to who were responsible for the storage rooms of the temple, which is not the same as receiving a great gift from Babylon that will lay the foundation for the economy of the temple in Jerusalem. Shaper's suggestion that this committee, responsible for receiving the gift from Babylon, was representing the interests of Persian taxpayers has no foundation in the text."
It's baseless.
and finally, 35, 12 for all Israel. Eskenazi comments, quote, 728 identifies those in the diaspora, some of whom joined Ezra's caravan, as Israel. The very composition of the list in 8, 1-14 expresses the notion of an Israel composed of 12 groups, an idea made explicit in 617. This view is reinforced by the number 12 and its multiples in the offerings here. Only the 77 lambs do not fit the pattern, which may explain why 1st Esdras 866 has 72. It is widely supposed that En, at least the Ezra source, includes only the Golah community in its definition of Israel. But verse 35 points to a more inclusive use of the term. While the newly arrived diaspora members offer sacrifices, they also joined their kin in the land, some of whom came earlier in verse 33. The emphasis then links the Golah members with Israel already in Judah. En, especially the Ezra memoir, insists that the diaspora is in the category of Israel. If a conflict about who counts as Israel exists in the Persian period, as sources suggest, the emphasis on Golah as Israel may be as much insisting that the Golah too is Israel, to counter allegations such as those in Ezekiel 33:24 that exclude the diaspora, not only or necessarily that it is the only Israel. I also have Bede as well, but
we don't have
there
to
are
sing
some-
again, do we? We have another Christian.
No. The singing is only for the start of it. But Aaron will have some comments.
Okay. All right. So DBK, addressing this one to Lilith, Tomer, Isaac, Lawrence, and all even think about reading the scripts from a Simonian...
ever think about?
Ever think about reading it from a
Lilith,
Simonian...
Tomer, Isaac, Lawrence, and all even think about
Ever
reading the
think
script-
about reading the
Ever
scripts
think-
from a Simonian Gnostic POV? Those Gospels suggest anyone could become the Messiah and ascend. That would be
sounds
fun.
but it sounds very specific.
Well, yeah, it does. It is very specific. Yeah. Although, like, I'm not sure if I've read anything from the Simonian Gnostics. I've definitely read stuff from Valentinians, from a few other sects. But
Yeah, you have several different videos on a variety of Gnostic texts, not these ones necessarily.
I don't think any of those were specifically Simonian though.
No,
it would be fun though. But I don't think you're not going to get any truth out of that.
I didn't know that Simone de Beauvoir wrote Gnostic texts, but I'll look into it.
Bad.
I mean, this is Blasphemers' Bible, not Simone's Bible.
No, it's a Simonian. It sounds
Yeah.
like it.
Simon
It
Magus.
does feel a bit sort of new agey, everyone can ascend to where Christ becomes this, ascended being character, and
I mean, yeah, the
I don't know. I mean,
Gnostics-
it
the
might have been a
Gnostics
less.
had a lot of crazy beliefs.
They did. It's very hippie. Like, it shows that kind of shit has been going on for quite some time, in and out. And there's always someone who wants, we can all be gods. And it's honestly, it's not the worst version of Christianity. It could have been better than the version that, for everyone, than the version that ended up on top.
Sable Eagle number 3, how many do we have? Says, in summary, what's up, dog? We heard you like bullshit, so we put some made up bullshit in your bullshit so you can make up bullshit while you bullshit.
Also, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Is the number? Yeah, number 3. Okay, yeah, that's because chat started like ranking people by how often they engaged. So
He's the third most active person in chat. That's what the number 3 stands
Okay,
for.
so whenever I see that number, I just stop reading it.
Yeah, you can skip that.
Yeah. All right, then.
Okay.
Because it used to be part of people's names. They would do that. All right, so Tomer,
Yes.
have you
Yeah,
completed your commentary?
No, of course not, because you know who has to say his opinion here? Who do you think?
Augustine.
Yes. No. Yeah, that Englishman, Isaac.
We all know
the-
it's Bede.
Yeah, beta, more like beta, am I right? So, the heads of the families spiritually symbolize all teachers of God's people, who receive increases in their eternal reward commensurate with the number of souls they have acquired for the Lord. Ezra carefully provides for himself a sufficient supply of ministers of God in order to carry out those things that touched on the needs of the temple. As a result of the captivity of the Assyrians, the descendants of Israel are shown to have reached even as far as the region of Casiphia, since Ezra sent to that place the ministers of the Lord's house to be brought to him. The silver and gold and the vessels that were being sent from Babylon to Jerusalem designate souls that are converted to the Lord from the confusion and sins of this world. The 3 days of tarrying in Jerusalem are the excellent virtues of faith, hope, and love that all the faithful should possess. Lovely.
Huzzah.
Yes. Or as the British say,
That's it.
rather.
Roll yeah, it's
Okay, so we're saving the last 2 chapters because what was the reason?
there will be a lot of
long.
commentary.
Okay.
Yes,
Tamara
and I
already has
haven't-
8 pages.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
th-
finished
th-
with
this
Ezra
is-
10.
This is the part about intermarriage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is where we get to be super racist, because we all know how much you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, everyone.
I do actually. I do.
I'm
I'm not racist. I'm just
Yeah. Tomer can't wait to be racist.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Well, do we
in
have
the
any
meantime-
closing commentary?
Yes, absolutely. Join the Discord, as I'm sure Peter is gonna drop the links in chat there. We
And
will
I
be.
will-
You should also subscribe to Milwaukee Atheist, but we will be doing a rebrand soon to the Behold Network. So that's gonna
Behold!
happen very soon, probably this upcoming week.
Lawrence, after
So-
today, I can't not post the links because you just showed all of us that you lead a very biblical life. And I think
Damn
that,
straight.
yeah, because according to the Bible, there was also a rebrand after the flood.
Yeah, that's
Also-
that's pretty standard.
Sure.
Also,
that is true.
I'm going to encourage you to get a bit of a fundraiser together and list the books that you lost to the flood. I hope you were able to save some of them with the techniques.
So the books, no, they were just not salvageable. There was because it wasn't just water.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The waters came up from the toilet, so it was
We get
not it was not pretty. It was
The point is,
bad.
get a list of the books, like the actual, this edition, this writer, this whatever.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
all
I
the
know. We-
details relevant.
Many of the books are already on the wish list, and I will be adding the Quran ones to that as well. Because I only put down the Bible stuff that we lost, but yeah, they should be. I didn't put down the Quran stuff yet because we always read out the Quran ones on the show, so I knew which ones we'd lost. Anyways, so I didn't put those down yet. But
If there's some way I can help you, like publicize your fundraiser, whatever, reach out.
if we ever end up doing that, So, but yeah, but right now things are just on the wish list.
But I hate that thing about when the water comes up out of the toilet. That's
Yeah, it was bad. It was about what was it, 4 feet of water,
Oh God!
and like basically everything got destroyed. But weirdly, our mics that we use on the show were just above the water line, so the microphones themselves are fine. The cords
mercy.
and everything attached to them got destroyed, but the microphones are fine.
my unfinished song says, "Hail Aaron and Panel, and hail post-flood rebuilding."
Yep.
Mm.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank
Also
you for
give me
joining us
money.
again. Hope to see you more often.
Yeah.
And if Lawrence, like I said, if there's a way I can help with that, I'd be happy to. And Tomer,
Hey, I mean, aside from getting me on the line, that's about it.
when next I am scheduled, and I'll have to check that right away. All right. So Tomer, take us out.
Bye.
Tomer's just refusing.
Tomer.
He's doing a little.
Oh, he found a porn channel.
He's got.
Bye.
And now for something completely different.
Guess who's talking about Jesus? Jesus. Jesus. Guess
But
talking
why
about
this version?
Jesus. It's Lawrence.